All right, start recording in three, two, and one. All right, and welcome back to the Reserve Squad Midweek Show, a soccer podcast covering all things in the EPL from a bench perspective. I'm your host, Ben, and since we last left off, because I have been away for a very long time, I didn't even finish last season, so I'll try to do some episodes to try to recap. But the season has kicked off again, and I did want to at least get something for the opening weekend. Just kind of the headlines. Most of the favorites, I guess you can say, coming into this, did what they needed to do. Liverpool were a little bit more in kind of the, the spectacular kind of fashion. They opened the season with their game versus Bournemouth, and a very emotional game. And one thing I haven't been able to speak about is the Diego Jota passing that happened, and it was really hard because obviously not someone that knew him. Uh, he really was one of my favorite players, mostly he would annoy the crap out of me, but he was just someone that whenever he came on, he would create something. And he would try things. Maybe it wouldn't always come off. I didn't love him being played as like the lone striker because I thought he was getting bullied a few times. But you if you got him the ball in the box, he would create a chance or he would take a chance. There was a couple of seasons ago where there was kind of a meme when Liverpool were only a 2-1 kind of a lead, where the game was still in the balance. Jota would come off the bench and would make it 3-1, and that was he would do that time and time again. Just just a lovely player to watch, and everything that's been said is he was a lovely person as well, and that was just a really hard thing to get through and to wake up and read. He lost his brother as well, and so the start of the season was a nice little tribute for him. So that was nice to see, and it's possible throughout the entire season when it gets to minute 20 at games at Liverpool will sing his song. So we'll see how that affects the team this season. It's a lot of people have been having Liverpool just to repeat as title contenders. Now, if they get Alexander Isak, I think that's kind of what people are thinking is that at least that seems to be where everything is going. Then I can see that, but I can also see there's a lot of transition here. There you've had to change at least both fullbacks, or at least Andy Robertson wasn't starting this game. You've lost Trent Alexander-Arnold, who I think was really underrated last season, and we'll see how that changes from Jeremy Frimpong to Alexander-Arnold. Completely different fullbacks. In the Crystal Palace game, I thought we saw Solid kind of struggle a little bit because he's not going to get the service that Alexander Arnold was offering him. Frimpong gets it, he wants to run with it. And when you get into the final third, Frimpong's overlaps is going to allow Solid to get the ball and cut inside and be way more of a threat. So it, getting towards the goal, it's going to make Solid maybe more threatening in a sense. But to be able to advance it could be we could see some progression issues at least in the beginning. There could be some growing pains there. So we'll see how Liverpool. Uh, are able to rebound. And the thing I was kind of leading off that I got sidetracked a little bit here is Jota's passing could affect the squad a little bit. We saw Salah towards the end of the Bournemouth game in tears. It's one thing to see what he offered, pitch wise. It's another thing to just kind of think he was a character. You saw it in the videos that the club would release. The backroom video staff. He would always make people laugh. Apparently he always had a smile on his face, and to lose someone that you've known for 5 or 6 years, however long he's been at the club. Uh, yeah, you can see that it's probably going to it's going to last with them. So uh, we'll see how they are able to rebound, and at this point, just you don't want to say it's whatever happens with the league is in the back foot, and you want to think about the other thing. Um, but that's not gonna be something that's gonna be able to just carry over. It probably will, take some time, maybe take some grief. We'll see how Arne Slot is able to handle, this as well, and, the other thing too is if they don't get Isak, the squad is a little bit bare. despite spending a whole lot because they've also made a whole lot of sales. Uh, so I mean, one injury to Ekatike, they don't really have a striker. I mean, I guess number two might be Chiesa, which we'll get to. I guess that's kind of maybe where we'll even start. So what I'm going to do is I am going to do what I've done in the past. I'm going to try to do a little bit of a review on most of the games that happen. I don't think I'll get to everything in detail, but I'll try to get to the main ones. Uh, and what I'll try to do is as well is I'll try to do some of the headlines and some of the transfer moves that each club has done over the summer. Who has come in, who maybe they have lost, because I wasn't able to get a preview in either. So we'll see if I'm able to fit all of this in one or not. But that said, let's get back in the groove of things, and let's start with Liverpool and Bournemouth. And it does end 4-2. Ekatike, got a start versus got his Liverpool career going with versus Crystal Palace. Scored a great goal there. That's another thing too. I haven't mentioned what happened in the Crystal Palace game. Liverpool did lose the Community Shield. Probably not the worst thing in the world though. One, it humbles you a little bit, but two, it's good to just kind of that's a good opponent to get out of the way and just kind of get used to what you're going to expect because Crystal Palace are one of the best teams when it comes to just kind of I think it's called rest defense now. That's kind of the term. But just being in the mid block or low block with those three center backs, with those very good defensive minded wing backs, everyone puts in a shift in. Everyone knows when to press, when to not, when to sit back, when to rotate. Henderson's a very good keeper as well. That's a very sound defensive minded team. That also offers something going forward as well. And Sar just continues to kind of haunt them a little bit, and went to PKs, and Henderson again made a couple of really nice saves. So Liverpool did not win the Community Shield, but looking back, people that win the Community Shield don't always go on to have the best season. So maybe that can be an omen or not. It was good to just see Ekatite get started. Scored a great goal. Him and Wirtz had a nice little link up. The only negative was Salah was a little quiet, and that was kind of where I was getting at. It did seem that was one of the cases where Trent's just a quick delivery over the top, and always finding Salah making his runs. That's not going to be there. So you're going to have to get that from somewhere else. The other thing too, no Ryan Gravenberch, no Alexis McAllister. At least he didn't start. So the midfield was a little bit different, and the build up was a little bit different. It might take some words. It might take some time to get Wirtz actually get going to get him kind of comfortable. He's smooth and silky on the ball, but that's you paid what they did over the summer to bring it in, and that's not necessarily enough. And then that's kind of the other thing too. You look at what Liverpool have done as far as spending wise. They have spent a lot. I mean, some of that they had to. They've lost a whole lot of as well. But they broke a record for Florian Wirtz, and he's kind of going to be their. He's expected to be kind of like the Phil Foden. They're just someone not really a player that they've really had at least in midfield. Now he's not. Maybe Phil Foden isn't really the best example. He maybe even a Gundogan. He seems like he can play anywhere. He almost reminds me of Thiago. Just kind of a more kind of maybe offensive minded Thiago or a younger Thiago when he was at Barcelona or early when he was with Pep Guardiola at Bayern. Uh, he might not necessarily be like a Coutinho like 10 like fans are expecting where he'll be looking to shoot when he gets the ball near the box and looking to score 20 goals. He might not be that kind of player, but what he is he's very very calm on the ball. He's very press resistant. Clever with his hips. He can make people move with feints. You get the ball into the box, he can be he's quick with his decisions, and we'll just see how that develops, how they were able to make him into maybe more of a goal threat because what we've seen is Wirtz coming in. That's kind of changed Dominic Soboschlai's kind of role in the squad. Maybe a little bit better on the ball, but maybe you lose a little bit with what Soboschlai was offered as far as out of possession. And we'll see. We'll see how this materializes. And like I said, you also have the two new fullbacks. No more Darwin Nunes. He's been sold to Saudi Arabia. And no Luis Diaz. He's gone to Bayern Munich, and so you've lost a couple of strikers. You lost Diego Jota as well, who was always able to offer you something on the bench. They sold as well. They've sold Tyler Morton. They've sold Ben Doak, which I kind of wanted them to keep, but you're looking at it didn't feel like he had a place to I guess role in the squad. I still think you need something for Salah. Salah can't do what he did last season without some kind of reprieve. He's more in age, but also you're going to lose him this year for African Nations Cup. So I don't really know what the idea is there, if it's Harvey Elliott or not. Now, Harvey Elliott with Frimpong, bombing forward and offering that overlap, Liverpool are going to have an overlapping right back. It seems like that's kind of going to be the idea. So maybe Harvey Elliott will work there if they don't sell him. Apparently, there's interest in Harvey Elliott as well. They've sold Tyler Morton. That's another one that they've sold, and they've sold Joel Kwanzaa. So the center back depth is a little bit weak as well. They have brought in a center back from Parma who all reports on him is he's supposed to be the next kind of big thing, at least in Italian football. He is 18, but he looks massive. He looks bigger than Van Dijk, at least standing. So, or at least the same size. So we'll see how Leone, something Leone, works out. I don't even know his name. I don't have it written here. But we'll probably will see him a little bit. And then the other center back depth is maybe Joe Gomez, but Joe Gomez could maybe play it right back as well. Uh, Connor Bradley right now is in and out with the injuries. Sometimes we see that with young bodies when they're trying to break into senior football. The training that's required of them. Sometimes the bodies do break down a lot. You hope that's just kind of a growing pains, and usually the body will adapt. But if not, Bradley is injured a lot with soft tissue injuries, and so a- after that, you only have kind of Frimpong at least for your right back depth. And again, it's easy to kind of overlook because Trent maybe was a little bit gettable defensively, but he had such a big role in the squad when Liverpool had the ball, whether or not it was when to go long, when to advance with it, when to be clever with the 1-2s, when to he was additional like controller kind of midfield player. Uh, and Frimpong is just not necessarily he hasn't necessarily shown that yet. Now, maybe that can come with some coaching and some experience. I mean, at Leverkusen, he really was just an attack minded kind of wingback. Essentially, I don't really know how much defensive duties he did, but he would get the ball on the run, and he's lightning with the dribble. He'll be really exciting. To be honest, but at least for Liverpool fans, they're going to see something different. So that's kind of just again, I'm rambling on a little bit, but anyways, we get to Liverpool and Bournemouth. Ekatite gets the first goal. It's 1-0 at halftime. Bournemouth did have a couple moments as well. There is also a kind of a negative moment where Antoine Semenyo was subjected to apparently some racism in the stands, which is definitely not good. Not good anywhere, but not good at Anfield. Given the values that they try to put out, and that was quite an ugly incident, and Semenyo basically got the last laugh a little bit there, as the second half comes around, and Gakpo makes it 2-0 early in the second half, and you know Liverpool kind of cruising a little bit, and then Semenyo gets two on the back of them. So again. It looked like things were not going to be so rosy to start, and then got to like close to like the 88th or 89th minute, and then Chiesa came on, and he gets his first goal in the league for Liverpool. He's apparently he scored in uh, scored in some FA Cup games or some kind of minor games, but not necessarily anything in the league. Slot never really played him. Oh, he also scored in the EFL final, but that only made it 2-1. Slot never played him last year, and people were always kind of annoyed by that a little bit. They brought him on, and he had a lovely goal. That's not an easy volley. If anyone that hasn't seen it, to hit, uh, very easy because it's coming at you a little bit. He does a very good job to get his knee and leg high enough where he doesn't get under it, and he doesn't basically spin it over where he just balloons it. A lot of people in that situation, because it's a quick reaction kind of moment, that's going rosette. That's being that's being skied. He doesn't get a lot of power. He doesn't need to. He just needs to direct it, and it just a great instinctive volley to score. and had a lovely knee slide, had a lovely celebration, and then Salah made it inevitable. After not really having his best game, he did make it 4-2, scoring with his right foot, which is what a bit of a surprise. But yeah, just kind of a loose ball that was kicked away, and he was the first one to it, and then he got into the box, and there were still like 4 or 5, Bournemouth defenders that looked to be in pretty good spot. There was no one in the box for Salah to even tried to look at, to play anything to. He had to go all alone, and I just don't think the Bournemouth defenders were expecting him to shoot with his right foot, and, he nailed it into the corner, so that was where the game kind of started. Like I said, the headlines, the emotional opening was about, remembering Jota. There's another thing as well. After the game, Slot even said he gave a comment afterwards saying when it got to 2-2, in past seasons, that's when he would have looked to bring Jota off the bench, and so obviously, very very emotional. Obviously, he's still with them, so that's good. Maybe in some ways it can kind of lift them. We'll see how that goes. And again, just lots of new bodies. This is a different kind of Liverpool team that we're going to see. Uh, and Wirtz and Ekitike immediately coming in and immediately debuting. The two fullbacks as well. No Rad Gravenberch, and you're kind of seeing the midfield depth isn't necessarily maybe what you would want. We don't really know how much Slot likes Endo. We saw last season the answer was not that much. He actually brought Endo on and he played him at right back, and that didn't really work out either. But Slot gave a pretty interesting answer afterwards as well. He didn't think Joe Gomez had 30 minutes in him, but he thought Joe Gomez maybe had 15 minutes in him. So what he did was he was just trying to eke out 15 minutes. Unfortunately, during that time, the Liverpool conceded at least one of those goals, and then I think Joe Gomez came on, and that's when Liverpool conceded again. Not necessarily his fault, but we'll get to how that goal happened, how both goals happened. Uh, Liverpool spent way too many bodies forward when they maybe didn't need to. And then with Bournemouth have lost a lot of players as well this summer. It's not just Liverpool, Pitter, Party. Uh, they've lost their entire back line, has been taken from them. Liverpool took Kirkaz, being one of them, but Madrid got Dean Howson. It looks like PSG have taken Zabineri. Zabineri and Dean Howson were very, very underrated. One, brilliant on the ball, but two, very, very reliable at being able to play high, being able to when to step up, when to recover back in spaces. There was a game versus it might have been Forest. It might have been yeah, I think it was Forest. Forest, maybe even Newcastle, where Bournemouth, I think it was Forest. Bournemouth just did a really good job of being able to just pin Nottingham Forest all the way back because, you could play your back line almost at the halfway line, and even with Forest, pace, they have, people like Anthony Elanga, um, last season, and no one was able to get behind them. Just really good recovery defending, and obviously really really good with the ball at their feet. They've replaced them with Diakate. Maybe they'll try to do something else. And we saw a Diakate debut, a player from Lille. He played well. Now maybe he had a little kind of mishap for the Chiesa goal, but for the most part, a debut. He looked aggressive. He looks like he'll be someone that'll actually he'll play well in the Premier League, I think. Now his partner, Marco Sinise, did not, and we'll get to a moment that happened in the first half, coming up where he had a bit of an issue. if not, uh, if not for a different ref that day, maybe he could have been sent off. Actually, probably should have been sent off, even with what they have with the era of VAR. Pretty remarkable he wasn't sent off after about 12 minutes, into the game where Ekitike just completely, uh, fooled him. First, was strong in a duel trying to get to a 50-50 ball, and then a kind of a kick away. The ball is going to go past him, and Ekitike is easily gonna go past him as well, and, he sticks out an arm and drops it down, to stop it. Stops the counterattack, stops a man that would have been completely through on goal. And, they get a red card that early in the game. None of this comeback probably happens. That probably would have been all she wrote. So it neutral fans are probably happy it didn't happen because they got a pretty good game out of this. For it to be 2-2 going into the 89th minute, there was a lot of drama and a lot of intrigue at that point for a lot of neutral viewers. The other thing too is Brentford have taken Django Watatara away from them, and he had a pretty good season for them last season as well. When Evan Nielsen was hurt, they were playing Watatara almost like a striker, and he was good. He was very strong in the air. He seems to recognize where the goal is, and we'll see how Brentford are able to use him. Whether they use him out wide because he's got a lot of pace to his game as well, or maybe tried him as maybe the Wiza replacement through the middle. We'll have to see how Brentford incorporate him. If Brentford can keep Wiza, this kind of going to Brentford. They can keep Wiza. They have Watatar on one side. They have Kevin Shada on the other. If nothing else, that's something that they'll be able to at least manufacture some goals out of that. You've got pretty good pace on the wings. Wise is pretty good at finding the goal. You'll have Damsgaard a little bit underneath. Brentford might be okay, but that's kind of getting ahead of myself there. No Justin Clivert for Brentford as well. No Ryan Christie as well. So Bournemouth, we're coming into this a little bit limping. We get to the lineup. It was Joe. It was Frimpong, Kanate, Van Dyke, and then Kirkhez. And then the midfield was Dominic Sloboslai, Alexis, and then Wirtz, which was a bit of a surprise to see. Now, no Ryan Gravenberch, so maybe that kind of expected. No Curtis Jones, because of maybe he didn't have his best showing versus Crystal Palace. Jones is very good on the ball, but the problem is especially when a side that's pretty good at just being kind of not really giving a whole lot of space. Jones isn't the best passer, and that's long been kind of a critique. So no Gravenberch, and that maybe showed up a little bit here. We'll see how he does versus Newcastle. Though last year Gravenberch struggled versus Newcastle. And then Bournemouth, already kind of mentioned most of what they had, so don't necessarily need to do that. Again, kind of the mini recap here. It takes some time to get for Liverpool to get going. Salah has an early effort, pretty decent. Frimpong, overlapping, forces a pretty good save. Liverpool are creating chances in this kind of opening period, but the final ball, Wirtz and Gakpo were kind of messing up a little bit there. But we do get to the Ekitike a goal, and people have been going on at Wirtz, maybe not necessarily being as uh, goal threatening as they would expect for that kind of money spent. But the goal happens because of his movement, and I think people have maybe missed that a little bit. What he does is he drags Tyler Adams to go away from him, and what that does is that creates a big opening. Now, one, Ekitike has to recognize where that space is. Two, McAllister, the person on the ball has to recognize there's a pass on it. It's a very minimal kind of slip pass, but it is on. McAllister plays it with the right timing, the right weight of it. And Ekatike then is able to get onto that, and then from there does get a little luck where he's able to kind of just bulldoze his way a little bit through Marco Senese, and then Tyler Adams isn't able to recover either, and then just threw on goal, and he's able to beat the keeper going the other way. And then right after that, there was a decent chance for him to get a second, where Gakpo got a pretty good cross off, and Ekatike just got the header wrong. We just need him to learn how to head the ball. For him being 6'3", he's going to have a lot of chances. He had a couple moments versus Crystal Palace to maybe actually win that game with his head as well. So a couple of moments where that hasn't necessarily come off, but already you're seeing quite a player that they have brought in. This is a player that I was pretty hopeful about. Last season as well when I was doing this podcast, I was thinking of him maybe for Arsenal or maybe for Newcastle at that point. Uh, but I've always kind of seen him as a little bit of like an Alexander Isak, almost like region or replacement, in that kind of sense, and maybe he can be his own kind of player. He The way he's dropping in to receive the ball, the way he's able to turn, the way he's able to link play and get people involved, he is giving Firmino flashbacks, but he's faster than Firmino. He's quicker, and taller. At 6'3", he's a unicorn in that kind of respect. Almost, I said Firmino. He's a taller Dembele. In that kind of respect, I don't know if he's as fast as Dembele, but the way that PSG used Dembele, almost like the false nine, it seems like Liverpool are trying to do that with the 6'3" unicorn, as well. And the only kind of negative, maybe not really a negative, but I just feel like sometimes when Ekitike does drop to do that stuff, uh, you know, it'll free Gakpo or it'll free Salah, but then there's really no one for them to do anything when they get into the box. There's no one in front of them. Where as opposed to someone like an Isak or someone like a Nunez, would maybe try to be wouldn't necessarily be dropping as much, but would also always be an option ahead. There are bonuses and negatives to that. When you have a forward that can drop back and to be in the midfield, you can always have a midfield advantage and create that way. But it does kind of limit a little bit of your ability to counter. So we'll see how this kind of evolves a little bit. The other thing too is Ekitike dropping in and doing that. That's kind of hurting a little bit what Wirtz wants to do. I think Wirtz would try to kind of be a little bit more of that kind of playmaker either. If not, you're limiting a little bit what he can offer you as a 10. So again, it's going to take a little bit for this to kind of for them to kind of learn how to do this. Uh, if not, maybe you can try Wirtz at the left wing, maybe drop Gakpo, but Gakpo actually had a very fantastic game, at least in the second half. So, anyways, it'll take some time for Liverpool to get going. Sticking with this game, couple Bournemouth scares though. As I mentioned, there's a Semenyo that makes a pretty good run behind Kirkez. The cross is absolutely perfect by Kirkez's replacement. Funny enough, Trufant might be someone if you're playing fantasy to get at because he had a couple really nice balls. And then Tavernier had a scary moment as well where. Cross found him, completely kind of open in the box, and he just kind of mishit it to Allison. And then we get to the Semenyo incident, and it was a black mark in a night that was supposed to be meant to be about something else. And uh, the thing I'm gonna say here is, given how the trajectory online has been changed over the last few years, it seems like some of this feels when maybe it would have been shied away from, or maybe only just thought about, individually or kept in their heads. People are kind of acting out a little bit more now. Maybe they feel like they can, like it's more acceptable, and then something has to be, kind of done about this. They've already cowered. The league itself has cowered on the knee. You heard people saying, "We don't want this knee. We don't want this, politics in football kind of chance." But to me, that's a dog whistle. And you're seeing why players take the knee, and you don't need to have this, and people saying there's no politics in football. You're bringing it in by yourself. When you feel fans can say things like this to players, that nothing about that is related to the sport. It's one thing to kind of give a go at someone when you're doing something like that. That obviously uh, saying the opposite. It is above the line. So apparently they found out who it was and they escorted him out. Uh, and again, Semenyo did have the last laugh, and I did like Semenyo's comment afterwards as well, where he spoke about how he'll always remember the night, not necessarily for the incident, but how most of the people in the online community, or at least teammates as well, Slot apparently spoke with him afterwards as well, to show that it's not okay, and people had his back. So good to see at least in that respect as well, but just a really ugly moment that should not happen, and it was a little bit of a black mark, unfortunately. Uh, but to go back to the game, couple things to say is the first half summary is Liverpool looked off. The final third, things again weren't really coming off. Kirk has bringing very good defensively, and he was going for every single 50-50 ball, every single duel, and he was just going to ground a couple too many times. So that wasn't necessarily that great. We saw Kirkez and Van Dijk not really have the best communication in the Community Shield. And that's one of the reasons why they ended up conceding to Sar last week. For Van Dyke is used to playing with Andy Robinson, and Kirk has a little bit more energy. Robinson maybe a little bit more kind of used to the bench. So and also, it was only after Kirkaz went off in the second half that Robinson came on when Liverpool actually conceded to Semenyo. So uh, you can maybe say that a little bit as well. A couple things to say as well is Bournemouth are one of the hardest teams when it comes to high intensity press. They try to turn teams over at will, and they're always going. And for the most part, Liverpool did a very good job against their press. Szoboszlai, Alexis McAllister, Wirtz, Ekitike, which is very good at offering themselves. When Liverpool want to go long, Ekitike was winning those long 50-50 duels as well, and he was able. If Liverpool wanted to. If a center back was on his back shoulder, he was doing a very good job to receive it with his back to goal and to maybe get some flicks to get people going. Wirtz was doing a very good job to get the ball on the turret and move very quickly. Uh, So Liverpool had receivers that were able to get the ball from the center backs where they weren't just booting it to go long just to relieve pressure. They were actually able to play through them quite well. To be fair, so that at least was very promising. Uh, but we get to the second half, and again, we start to see Liverpool really do come to life a little bit. Gakpo starts to wake up and understand that he's 6'3" and he's got legs for days as well, and he just starts to kind of bully a little bit of Adam Smith, trying to get on him. And Gakpo does a very good job to win a couple duels that allows Liverpool to advance upfield, and then Ekatite finds him in the box, and he basically has a little 1-2 with him, and then Gakpo does a very good job to just kind of, draw some feints and finds a way to get near kind of the angle he wants, and he's able to find the corner. Uh, but I just felt he started to be way more comfortable in the second half, kind of evading players, pressing him, drawing fouls, finding teammates with quick 1-2s. Gakpo showed up in a way he didn't necessarily look in the Community Shield. Now, different kind of different opponents, I guess we can say. With the Community Shield game, Gakpo had to deal with a wing back and then a very aggressive kind of center back as well that was always in position. Here, maybe able to kind of fool Bournemouth, you bully Adam Smith a little bit there. It gets to 2-0, and I thought it was pretty comfortable at this point, and I guess Slot did as well. He makes some subs, so he takes off both fullbacks. He takes off Frimpong. Apparently, he said he was dealing a little bit with a hamstring, which hearing that is not really good to hear either. The first part of the game. Now, he did show up a little bit late, and maybe he hasn't had the full preseason. Um, he was doing a pretty decent job defensively. Now he does look tiny. He looks 5'5", 5'6", to be honest. Now Salah isn't really the tallest, and Salah is like a head taller than him. That said, he was holding himself pretty well. Maybe he's got really good upper body strength, and lower body strength as well, because he wasn't necessarily getting bullied in maybe the ways you would have maybe feared. But that said, the hamstring bothering him, that is a little bit of a scare. So what Slot did is he brought Endo on. So he brought Robinson on for Kirkos, kind of a like for like, maybe not necessarily like for like, but that makes sense. And then uh, the because Robinson can't be as physical as and it doesn't have the recovery pace that Kirk has now at this stage in life either. And then he brought Indo on instead of no Connor Bradley was available, and then good like I said, Slot said Gomez wasn't able. He didn't feel like Gomez had the 35 or whatever minutes it was left. Maybe he had 15, and that's basically what we saw. So it didn't really work out. Robertson lost Semenyo after coming on. Endo isn't necessarily a right back, and maybe kind of got lost a little bit on things too. And Liverpool's transition defense got a little exposed here. Dominic Szoboszlai gets ball from Salah. It's not the best ball from Salah, and Szoboszlai, I don't really, I can't fault him that much because if he tries to do a little bit of a back heel. And if he's able to get this through a little, he sees the gap, and he's able to get that through the gap, Liverpool are probably going to have a very good scoring chance. Instead, Bournemouth are able to kind of just deflect the gap, and then from there, able to find, to do. I think it's Brooks, and then Brooks has the complete channel to run up because there's no Endo, there's no right back there. Kanate has to run all the way out, and he's not able to stop the cross. Brooks has a good cross in, and Semenyo has gotten in behind Van Dyke and Robinson, and able to get it past Allison. So that's kind of how you get the first one, and then Joe Gomez does come on for Endo. Alexis comes on for Curtis Jones, and here Liverpool again have an attack, and it is 2-1. Maybe they're trying to go for the kill shot to make it 3-0. Salah has the ball, tries to find Szoboszlai in the box, kind of across. The ball goes behind him, and from there, this is where it becomes a problem because Gomez has made it run into the box. Uh, Curtis Jones has as well, and basically once the ball gets behind Szoboszlai, that's it. There's no midfield cover anymore. There's no fullback cover. Robertson's too high up as well on the other side, and you basically have a 4v2 in that kind of moment. Bournemouth are able to get numbers. Semenyo basically has a carry of 60 yards to get basically towards the box near Allison to give him fits. And Van Dijk and Kanate get the communication wrong. They get turned around, and as Semenyo just has a great power shot to find the corner past Allison. Maybe takes it early as well, so that kind of surprises him too. But he also has a lot of power on the shot to find the net. And there you go. Kind of a little bit of a karma lesson where you don't taunt players for racism because they can turn around and do that to you. At least the attacking players. So it was good on Semenya to experience that, and then also rebound. And he's a player. Uh, Something I noticed last season, towards the end of last season, is I was looking at who had the most shots in the league, and Salah was number one with 130. Number 2, or at least, close to Salah, was with 125, was Antoine Semenyo. He gets a lot of shots off in that Bournemouth side. Uh, Now his XG was only 9, and he didn't maybe he had 7 goals. He doesn't always score, uh, but he gets a lot of shots off. He very, very powerful runner, and, especially in transition, good for him to make those 2 count. And then there we go. At 2-2, 10 minutes to go. You need someone with some late game heroics, and he brings on Chiesa for Wirtz, which was a bit of a bold decision at that point as well. The other thing to say is during this time, he brings off Ekitike as well. So he brings off kind of the striker. Slot said he didn't feel like Ekitike had 90 minutes in his legs. That's fine, but you don't really have like for like at this point either. So at this point, it was hard to see. Yeah, it thought Liverpool were going to drop points. But then Liverpool did find themselves in a pretty good situation. Allison has a long ball that finds Dominic Szoboszlai, has a wonderful little cutback. Lovely like first touch, almost like behind the back, behind the back kind of first touch. What he does is very hard to do. And he's able to cushion it to Salah, and then Salah has a very, immediately whips in a dangerous ball into the box. Curtis Jones is running in front of the keeper. The keeper does it pretty well, actually, to not be distracted and to not, basically punch this into his own net. But uh, he's only able to parry it, and the danger is still in the area, and then Chiesa just finds himself into the box. He does a very good job of recognizing Kanate is in front of him, and so what he does is he holds back. He's making the run towards Kanate, and then he sees Kanate's got a lot of he got a lot of attention near him, and he's basically occupying two kind of center backs. And what happens is Kanate and the center backs go to where the ball is being parried, and the ball can only be kind of headed away, and Chiesa just finds himself where the ball finds him. And that's because he didn't immediately run all the way forward. He recognized to kind of hold his run a little bit, and that little pause is why the ball finds him, and then he adjusts his body, has the awkward kind of angle, but he gets the leg over the ball, keeps it low from ballooning, and finds it into the corner. Just a great shot. And then Salah did make it 4-2 with his right foot. Liverpool with the majority possession, would you would imagine at 2.2 XG to 1.7. Bournemouth, 19 shots and 10 on target, but only 7 shots in the first half. They did show up a little bit more in the second half. Bournemouth with 10 and 3, 401 passes, 82% accuracy. Not as high as you would expect for an Arnie slot team, but first game of the season, that's okay. Arsenal were a lot lower, as we'll get to as well. And then running stats. This is kind of a new thing that I haven't always had access to. Distance covered 112 kilometers to 112. For both, and then sprints 161 to 174. Bournemouth, I think, had the most sprints of anyone over the entire season, and slots. Everyone has talked about how Bournemouth run more than anyone else, and that kind of shows it a little bit there as well. So we'll get to kind of the main talking points here, see how we're doing for time. It's not that bad. So Semenyo overcoming what he experienced. Bournemouth getting back into the game. Maybe lucky not have that red card as well. Ekitike, a monster on those loose 50-50 balls, which it's not minor. People look at strikers as just kind of be someone to just kind of score the goals. You need someone to also be able to just kind of link up play a little bit especially when a team goes long. That way you don't just lose it immediately. And he was doing a great job of doing it. He also had some clever flicks. He was getting people involved. When he was getting touches, he wasn't giving the ball away, which is always good to see. And Bournemouth could not keep a body on him. And then Chiesa the hero. So some Liverpool points. The kind of tactics to talk about. No Gravenberg for the first couple of weeks, and it has shown, in my opinion. So the midfield can be a little bit light. The center back depth as well. Like I mentioned, they did sign this 18-year-old from Parma. Does look a monster, and there have been strong links to Mark Gahey of Crystal Palace as well. Don't know if that'll happen or not. If not, there is another 18-year-old. Now, I don't really know if they want to sign two 18-year-olds in Jeremy Jaggett. in France. And the reason why I'm saying his name is apparently Crystal Palace have been linked to him as well, and Crystal Palace have shown me that they know what they're doing when it comes to targeting people. I wanted Maxence Lacroix a couple of years ago when he was in Germany as well for Wolfsburg it was either Wolfsburg or it was the other kind of W team. And he's turned out to be absolutely as good as possible as well. So the other thing to talk about, Salah again isn't going to get the ball the way that he's gotten in the past, so it's going to take a little bit of time to adjust there. So how does Wirtz kind of fit into this? How does Isak come in and Ekatike fit into this? I don't really know if I love the idea. Isak is someone that is a better striker. When it comes to just kind of just a pure finish, just a pure kind of game match winner, it's hard to say he's not as reliable as anyone really. Ekatike does seem to be maybe a bit different kind of striker. Ekatike is running outside to receive the ball on the left. There is a left dominance a little bit to this Liverpool team, so I can see maybe both kind of playing together. If not, I can see both kind of switching off. There are a lot of games in the season now. That is a ton of money to spend on Isak when it could have been that money could be floated, elsewhere to maybe get a backup striker. Uh, I don't really know what the idea is there. If they aren't able to get Isak, I do feel like they are just a little light, and I don't really know where you would go. Um, even someone like a Wiza as kind of a backup striker, I wouldn't be against it. To be honest, but he is going to have African Cup of Nations, so he's still going to be hurt a little bit there. But we'll see. We'll see what they do. The If they can get Isak though, the depth all of a sudden turns around and it's not bad at all. Like the second team could be Chiesa, Gakpo, and Ekitike. That's not that's quite good off the bench with Isak, Salah, and maybe Wirtz as kind of a front three. But again, the center back depth could be in question. The midfield depth could be in question. And then with Bournemouth, again, Slot spoke about how much they run, or they ran last season, how much they run still. You see it with the sprints. They've got a team that can run. They've just brought in Ben Doak, that was at Liverpool. He's a speedster as well, so you've got some ways for them to just be as threatening as ever on the counter. Evan Nielsen can run as well. They've lost Watatara. It looks like maybe they replaced Watatara with Ben Doak. We'll see how that works or not. Bindok's going to be a little bit smaller, but very very pacey as well, and they still have lots of options, lots of attacking options as well. Tavernier was played a little bit in midfield, but he can be kind of more kind of an attack number going forward as well. I don't know if they have Dennis Unel still or not. Maybe the midfield though could be a little bit light. We saw Alex Scott and Tyler Adams kind of play for them. No Ryan Christie, no Chris Cook. So that kind of could be maybe showing up a little bit there. But and at the back, replacing what they've lost. Now Trufant looked pretty solid as far as the Kirkes replacement. We'll see how he is defensively. But at least going forward, he has a quite a good delivery on him. Uh, Diakate looked very, very good. He looks like he's ready to just take on the league and be physical. Maybe he's not as tall as you would like, but he almost looks like a Muriel kind of center back, very aggressive as well. He wasn't afraid to step up on and to try to stop balls being played into attackers higher upfield. He wasn't he wasn't waiting. We can say that. Senese though did look like he was struggling. Now you're not not every team has someone like an Ekatike, so that could maybe be a positive there. But we'll see how Bournemouth are able to just kind of respond by losing what they've lost. Uh, and then we'll get to Man City and Wolves, and this one ends 4-0. And it's hard to not think Man City might actually be, I wouldn't necessarily say the title favorites, but maybe the closest title contender after not a lot of people talking about them last season. Now, we'll see how they respond this week versus Spurs. They turn around from Wolves to play a Spurs team, a Thomas Frank led team that is able to rebound. Thomas Frank led team that played PSG very very good just last week when I wasn't really expecting that at all. So we'll see how they're able to handle that. Uh, but the headlines to start here. Holland reminds everyone that he's very, very good still. He's able to get to Tiani Reiners that has come in from AC Milan. Was maybe star of the weekend. and we'll get to his game as well. He's really the reason why Man City scored two of those goals, opening goals, but actually three of those opening goals, scoring one himself, but also basically creating two as well. And then Ryan Cherky, Man City signed in the summer as well, coming off the bench, and he scored a lovely goal as well. So the Man City headlines, they had the Club World Cup exit kind of early. Maybe that's the reason why people weren't kind of talking about them coming into the summer because they looked very vulnerable in the Club World Cup. They looked very good, going forward. I think they put like seven or six past Juventus, but they played Al Hilal in kind of the early knockout game, and they were counted on at will. Uh, so maybe Pep kind of saw that and kind of tweaked things a little bit because we saw a different kind of formation, and I'll get to that a little bit as well. But also, Rodri got hurt, and we were thinking, the thinking that originated last season was no Rodri, no fun. But they also spent 200 million last summer or last February to bring in. They brought in some center backs that Pep doesn't necessarily favor, in Kushyanov, and they shipped one out to Girona already. Uh, but they brought in Marmoush, and it doesn't feel like Marmoush is kind of just sent to be a bench role player now. But they brought in Nico Gonzalez of Porto, and he looks an absolute star. It took a while for him to get going. He looks set to be very, very good. And now you have Reinders as well. Almost looks like he's going to be a Gundogan replacement. He plays like Gundogan, but he's taller. He can be more physical. Uh, people the rap on him online was he wasn't the best defensively for AC Milan, but you're coming into a different kind of setup where Pep's going to ask a little bit more out of you, and he looks. I don't see why he can't be a star defensively as well. He looks very good. So that's kind of going where we go with that. And they also signed Ait. Uh, and that could be a wonderful kind of underrated signing as well. No more Gvardiol at left back, we don't think. Gvardiol can do a job. I think at center back can be a very good left-minded center back. But Ait is an underrated defender in my opinion, and he's also brilliant on the ball. And the shock I think of the week, at least for Man City, was the way they played Ait. They weren't asking him to bomb forward. They weren't asking him to either do either to offer overlap runs or underlap runs. They weren't really asking him to be near the box and be nearly as attack minded as I think people were expecting, and that maybe affected Jeremy Doku a little bit because he had to do everything a little bit by himself, and he doesn't really have a left foot. So that kind of affected a little bit of his game. But what it did is it made the City a little bit more defensively secure, and we'll get to that as well. Um, and then Wolves have lost Aitonori, and they've lost Mateus Cunha, and they look a little. They're gonna need to bring in some people to be safe. Now that said, the way this game started, Wolves didn't look that bad, and we'll get to that as well. So the lineup here for Man City is John Stones coming back, and if he can actually go, you say this every year, if he can go a season and actually stay uninjured and actually play more than I don't know 5 games or in a row, this Man City defense does look different. John Stones is a Rolls Royce of a defender, and he can only go 3 or 4 games without being hurt. Uh, Pep did not really use him last season. They get him back. That's a new signing by itself, and he was very, very good as well. Ruben Diaz, I think, is a little bit of a liability for them now. But that said, you pair him a little bit with legs, it can be okay. So I can actually see maybe Gvardiol and Stones kind of being a little bit more of kind of like the main center back pairing. But Gvardiol wasn't available, and then Ait Nori was almost played as more of a third center back than necessarily an attack minded kind of wing back or fullback. And again, when City were brought in, I don't think that would have been the idea. But what they did was almost they had a back three, a little bit in possession, and then you had Nico Gonzalez a little bit in front of him. And then you had Rico Lewis, who quote unquote was the right back, but not really, who played a little bit more in midfield. He had like kind of the freedom to basically make runs into the channels, or into the half spaces, and then Bernardo Silva a little bit on the other side. And then you had Oscar Bob, Gianni Reiners a little bit in front of him, and Jeremy Doku, and then Erling Haaland a little bit by himself. But the shape was a little bit different, and but you really notice is Oscar Bob did a very good job of staying wide the entire game, as did Doku. And so that gave Bernardo Silva the space to make his runs, and he was doing that and being effective, and that gave Rico Lewis the freedom to do that too. Rico Lewis was also able to make those recovery runs back to when Wolves did what was able to go wide. So it was technically a back four, but in possession it was they moved to a three, and you have Nico Gonzalez that was able to clean up duty as well. This looked good. Uh, no, Phil Foden was saying he had an injury, but Phil Foden coming in back in, I don't really know how he gets into the team, because Oscar Bob does something that Phil Foden never offered, at least playing on the right side. He stayed wide at least to receive the ball. Now, when he got it, he would make runs to come closer to the box. But you look at his heat map, you look at just game footage. He's always on the touchline, and that had to annoy Wolves beyond belief because it forced them to stretch out, and that would allow Rico Lewis to have a little bit of a gap if he wanted to make those runs into the half spaces, and that's how City basically get the first goal. So yeah, no Phil Foden for injury, other things to, and I guess that was kind of the thing to really talk about. Rian Cherky used on the bench. Uh, 'Cause that was the thing to say as well, and then no Gvardiol, as well. And then we get to the Wolves. Wolves had Mike Doughty, Agabagnahu, and then Tati Gomez, and then Kayani Hover, Andre Gomez, Andre and Yao Gomez is a pretty good midfield too, and then Matt Wolfe, uh, aptly named to join Wolves. Got his debut as well. I guess the Ait Nori kind of replacement. He played all right. I don't really know how much of the goals were necessarily his fault. And then Munetze, Larson, and Bellegarde, and that's where the issue comes from, in my opinion. You've got players that are willing to run. Munetze had a pretty good game. Bellegarde is more of kind of an industrial kind of maybe kind of a midfielder, in that kind of a sense. I've never really seen him being that really great at being an attacker. He does have legs. He does have a motor to him, but you don't have like for like with Mateus Cunha is not it, and you're missing what he offers. And they brought in someone like John Arias of Colombia, who impressed in the Club World Cup. You're probably gonna have to start him soon. Maybe Versity wouldn't have really made a difference. That's probably true, but I just think they need to rethink that a little bit because the lineup that they played all right for the first half, but the lineup here screams relegation fight. Despite how good Vito Pereira changed that Wolves side last season, a lot of that really was Mateus Cunha just being very very good at creating goals out of nothing, and then them being very good at just kind of being very good structurally, where it was hard to kind of play through them. They became very good defensively last season, but they need to get goals somewhere. And other than crosses into Larson, where they didn't really have a whole lot of creation. Now, Yao Gomez and Andre are very good industrial kind of players. They're not the most creative, so you don't really see where that creation is going to come from. Yeah, and Arias is more kind of an attack-minded player, not necessarily kind of a clever number 10. So they've lost a lot by losing Mateus Cunha and also Ait Nori. So Wolves, if I was a Wolves fan, this is a team that I think would be worrying. But that said, they did play okay in the opening few minutes. So we'll get like the recap here. Wolves have a few minutes to maybe actually ahead. Munetsi even scores. But and again, every time they did look dangerous. There was just someone was offside, so a cross or a crawl across would find Larson and maybe just be a little bit out of reach. They were able to get in behind a couple of times, but again, a couple of really clever steps by John Stones was taking people off sides. It started off a competitive game, and then before you know it, uh, where City are looking vulnerable around like the 15-minute mark. This is what I have in my notes here. You notice something different about Man City. They are running more. They're causing turnovers more. They're not getting outworked in midfield, even though you have a Jao Gomez and an Andre. They're actually winning those 50-50 goal. They're winning the ball back immediately. They're causing pretty good pressing traps. They're able to outnumber people in midfield. Now Rico Lewis was helping out a little bit with that. They're pressing well. There are a couple of times where Jose Assad on goal kicks nearly, basically, plays into a whole lot of danger. Uh, Man City looked different here, and then we get to the goals, and it's Holland. It's always going to be Holland. But and then it comes after blowing an early chance as well. One moment where Bernardo Silva made a pretty nice run into the box, and that again that's able to happen because of Doku keeping width that allows some space to run into. Bernardo had a great cross in, and Holland free header and had missed it. Uh, he doesn't have a lot of big misses, but he also scores a lot as well. And so we'll get to the goal, and it's all about Tiani Reiners. He gets on the ball, and he has a lot to do here. So Holland makes a run ahead, and he goes like 25 yards off sides, and it's really hilarious because he doesn't get the ball and he just kind of stays off sides. And Wolves don't really notice it. They don't think it's going to be a danger, and they just think Holland's run off sides and he's being lazy, and so you don't really have to worry about him. And then Riders does something what not a lot of people do, not a lot of people on a Pep Man City side would normally do. Instead of maybe recycling it because there are no options ahead of him, going sideways or backwards. He decides to take people on, and he takes a risk of losing the ball, and basically he rolls it, and he's able to dribble through two Wolves players, and then once you're able to do that, now there's trouble because now he's able to run at Tati Gomez one on one, and Tati Gomez doesn't know what to do. Now he can leave to go to Tiani Reiners, but if he does, he leaves Rico Lewis, or he can stay back and allow Reinders to basically get closer to the box. And he freezes, and he basically caught in no man's land. And Reinders sees it and floats it over him, and has a beautiful little flick over Gomez, and then from there, he's able to find Enrico Lewis. Enrico Lewis does what he needs to do. He has a nice, quick first time cross into the box, and it's an easy tap in for Holland, who once the ball is able to get in front of him, now Holland's played on sides. And so they kind of get a little bit lucky, a little bit fortunate there. But again, it's all created by Reiners and it's created a little bit by Oscar Bob as well. Oscar Bob is always staying wide, and what that's doing is that's stretching that Wolves back line a little bit, and Gomez and Wolf have to kind of be aware of that, and that's allowing that space for someone like Lewis to run into. And Rico Lewis has pretty good pace to him as well. He looked a pretty good player for them. I haven't always loved him when he's been played as kind of a right back kind of role, but this kind of inverted role a little bit when you still have width. Now, Man City don't always have this, but they did here. So well, Oscar Bob might not always start, but I'm kind of struggling to think he might be their best option to just play on there right now. They're keeping Savinho. Now maybe Savinho will offer the same thing as well. I don't even know if Oscar Bob has a right foot to cross, but if nothing else, he's just being an annoyance by staying wide, and that's making City stretch the pitch out, and that's something that they haven't always been able to do. Phil Foden doesn't do that. Phil Foden tries to play inside. That makes Phil Foden a goal threat, but it doesn't. That makes it easier to defend against him as well. Not I said that tongue in cheek. Phil Foden's still going to try to get a shot off, but it's not going to be. You're not going to have that space to make that kind of run. Um, so that's where we are, and then City calls another turnover, high in midfield, and then Oscar Bob's able to get on the ball, and he has options ahead of him and plays in Reinders. Maybe not the best ball into Reinders. He has to run a little bit more outside than he would like to, but he has a great finish with the left foot to find the corner. And 2-0 there, you figure that's probably the game, and then James Trafford you'll get to start over Ederson. That's another move that Man City have made. He has a great little intermediate pass to find Reinders again, and then from there he's able to just carry the ball all the way upfield. He finds Oscar Bob as well, and Bob plays it back to him. And then Reinders continues his run, going towards the byline, and then there's a cutback ball towards Holland. It's Reinders knows where Holland is. It's instinctive, and then Holland just gets the ball into the box, and it's just an easy hit for him. And then Holland just able to power it into the corner. Holland didn't have a lot of touches. That's normal, but Holland was also able to they were able to find him in the box more with these runs around him. And again, this is not what we saw from Man City last season. When we did not see this kind of running off the ball, we did not see Man City being able to create turnovers like this. Now have legs in midfield in a way that they did not have last season, and they have a way to get Holland in dangerous areas that they weren't really able to do last season as well. Now, was this a one-off? Was Wolves just really bad, or Man City more direct? In ways they just haven't been. With someone like Reiner's doing what he did, I don't think Bernardo Silva would have made that play. I don't think Gundogan would have made that play last season. I don't even know if Kevin De Bruyne would have done it. Uh, this is a different kind of Man City side. They don't have Kevin De Bruyne. This is a Man City without Rodri, uh, without Foden, and in past years that would have spelt doom. Um, but they've rebounded pretty well, and I'm saying all this without Omar Mamouche, who had a pretty good season for them last, at least second half of the season when he joined, and he's now just kind of related to the bench. So uh, Man City are scary now. 58% possession, 2.4 xG, 15 shots. It did feel like they went a little bit off the stepped off the gas a little bit in the second half, where they tried to just kill the game out. They could have. I feel like they could have done anything here. Nearly 500 passes and 91% accuracy. That's about normal. Wolves with 316 and 82%, point 0.4 xG. That feels a little harsh. I thought they were a little bit more dangerous, just a couple offsides as well. Tight offsides, but I guess offsides doesn't really count for the xG. But the running stats here is this is a different Man City side. 122 kilometers to me is the most distance run for any team on the weekend. Now they had 133 sprints, so not as many sprints as Liverpool or Bournemouth, but still that's high for a Man City side. 114 for Wolves, and 112 distance for Wolves as well. So on par with Liverpool and Bournemouth. So Wolves, didn't just sit back. Wolves did run a pretty good bit. Just no one ran as more distance than Man City, and just that's not a Pep side that normally just kind of sits off the ball, that just kind of tries to kill games with 1,000 passes. That is This is different. Man City have brought in Pep Linders, Klopp assistant. Maybe it's immediately showing up. I don't really know, but and one thing to kind of say about Wolves as well is their issues weren't necessarily not causing City problems. It was just causing James Trafford problems. Not really enough on target. They would get into good areas, good dangerous crosses, but that would be about it. And then City were able to just kind of kill the game after they had the lead and able to just kind of handle those crosses as well as possible. The Wolves probably would have scored at least a goal if not for John Stones knowing when to step on sides. He saved a goal by doing that. So game intelligence there. Uh, Main kind of talking points. Again, the pressing for Man City looked much more improved. The shape had width. They could be vulnerable at the back. Ruben Diaz to me is a vulnerability, and that's where I feel like if you change him for Gvardiol, this looks like a title winning side than just a title competing side. Now, one injury to Liverpool, and then who knows? The Man City could walk away with it. They're doing this without Rodri, without Phil Foden, who are going to be back. You imagine very soon. Um, but does that disrupt things a little bit here? The, this is a this is not a Pep side as far as it's a Pep Guardiola side with the ball. Without it, it's a Pep Lender side. At least as far as the out of possession work, I'm not used to seeing Man City cover that kind of distance, force those kind of high turnovers in that kind of respect anymore. I'm used to Man City just having the blue on their shirt and that scaring teams where they just boot the ball away and just give it away for fun. I'm not used to seeing Man City actually force the turnover by just being near the ball and hounding it to create the problems. So far more aggressive. They created pressing traps as well. They want you to play a ball into the space and then immediately are able to get to that space. They were doing that a lot too. And then Reinders a big reason for that, but also Oscar Bob. And then Holland is going to benefit a lot from that. You're able to make City into a bit more of a transition team than they've been in the past, and obviously Holland's going to benefit from that. And they're also looking to play Holland as well. Reinders, there are a couple of times when Holland make around and didn't necessarily get it, but Reinders was looking to be direct. He wasn't looking. City were getting the ball. They weren't necessarily looking to just kill it and recycle. When Ryan Cherky came on from the bench, his immediately thought was to go for it too when he's able to play. We know Marmoush likes getting forward. We know Doku likes getting forward. It's a different Man City side than in the past when really it was only Kevin De Bruyne that was doing that. So uh, different city look, but a similar feel in that kind of respect. And again, no Rodri to still add to this. Uh, and until Rodri gets back, Nico Gonzalez looks like Rodri, big and strong, 10 for 11 in the duels, and that's against Andre and Yao Gomez. That's comfortable on the ball going forward, press resistant, legs to run for days, and they've got legs elsewhere in the team with Ait Nori and Rico Lewis and Reinders. So Uh, it's hard to not go overboard. Again, we'll have to see how they are for Spurs. Wolves were able to get behind them. Now, again, I don't really know how much that matters or not because teams that play high and teams that press, the ball over the top is always going to be on, and then it matter. What matters then is how you're able to get the ball from being outside and high to being a goal threat. Now, Wolves weren't really able to do that. They were able to get a couple crosses in. Now, Spurs with Kudus and with Richarlison that we saw on the weekend, they do have that threat as well. So will that matter or not? I do feel like Ruben Diaz is the weakness now when I look at this Man City side. Uh, or maybe James Trafford. We don't really know how good he can be. It's not Man City side without Ederson. That's another that then looks to be the change. Man City are going to go maybe with the city's academy boy. Now he's won with England in a U21 Euros. Crazy bag of potential. He showed he has pretty good feet. The City scored the third goal because of his kick. Uh, but that said, he has been, he has, gotten some experience in the league. He relegated with Burnley, but he played well when he was with Burnley. But that's a pretty big step up, to be honest. So we'll see if that really is the idea or not, or if City actually go out and buy a keeper before the end of the window. They have been linked to someone in Portugal where they got Ederson in the first place. So we'll see if they do that or not, or if they really do roll the dice with James Trafford. We'll have to see. Wolves weren't really able to scare him that much. I think Spurs could. So we'll see if they do or not. And again, John Stone's back makes this back line look different, but again, can he go a couple games without being injured? Kushyanov as well. I think has the ability to help out as far as if you're going to play a higher line, you need someone with recovery legs. Uh, maybe Kushyanov doesn't have the best kind of eye for a pass, but you've got you've got everyone in that team other than him can be a receiver. So I don't know how much that will really hurt him or not. I think Pep should trust Kushyanov more this season. If not, his fault. Possible they're going to sell Akanji, but they still have Ake. And they still have Gvardiol. So it's not like they don't have depth at the center back position either. Uh, Other things to talk about here is uh, they did look a little bit vulnerable in the El Halil in the summer, but a lot of that was Aitnour maybe being a little bit out of position, kind of trying to be an attack minded fullback, and then you're not having the ability to cover out wide in the channels with the center backs. Maybe that's the reason why Pep wanted him to stay a little bit back. Uh, we'll see if Aitnour is able to have that discipline throughout the entire season or not. I do have the position where I don't want to say he's like Alexander Arnold on the left side, but he's better defensively than people think. When he's in position, he's very good 1v1, and he's got very good recovery pace. Now, he's also a threat, going forward. So we'll see what license he has in other games or not. Jeremy Doku, if he's not going to have that overlap, he's going to be hurt by this. That he's kind of the only one that looks and to kind of be to be struggling a little bit here. I do want to maybe Pep tries playing Phil Foden on the left, to just kind of be more of a creator for Holland instead. But or maybe you can try Savinho if they're keeping Savinho. Doku looked very good for the Club World Cup. That's kind of the only negative here, but he did that because Aït-Nouri was giving him a lot of support. Uh, but, it's only one game. We'll see if he's able to bounce back or not. It's not like he played terrible, it's just he looked uncomfortable when Wolves were forcing him outside to be on his left foot when they weren't letting him cut in, so that was kind of the negative, and he was giving the ball away a little bit with a couple passes, so that was just, the one thing to talk about there. Wolves, the 3-4 shape didn't really work. Losing Cunha, losing what they've lost didn't really work either, so that's where we are for those games and see how we are for time. And this will probably be the one that I spend the second most of my time with the Arsenal Man United. I don't want to spend a lot for the actual game because not a ton happened as far as I shouldn't necessarily say that. It was a more entertaining game than past versions. I guess I could say that, but still 1-0. Strange game. The way the goal happened was quite lame. But everything after that, I don't think anyone was predicting this. Anyone that would have looked at a kind of a preview for this kind of game, I don't think anyone would have been able to nail what happened. Maybe what they would have said, Man United will be more competitive because of the signings that they've done. I don't think anyone would have been able to predict that Man United would have been able to beat through Arsenal's press, make it almost non-existent, uh, and have 22 shots. Now Raya had to make some pretty nice saves as well, but Arsenal having 200 passes, one of the lowest I think I've seen covering Arsenal since they've had Arteta, in a moment where they've spent big to bring in Martin Zubimendi, one of the best controllers in Europe over the last couple of seasons. I don't really know what I saw from Arsenal, um, and with Man United, I the craziest thing to me is you concede a goal from a very poor error from the keeper. Onana maybe looks to be out, and they're trying the backup in by Indoor. He has that error, and that's really unfortunate because otherwise, I think he had a fantastic game. Um, Now it's not the only time he's had an error. I think he played versus Newcastle in the league last season, where he also had a lot of uh-ohs as well. Uh, but here, you know, you can't ignore the error because the error is why they lost points. Uh, After that, he's the reason why Arsenal were not able to press them at all. Um, he was very comfortable on the ball. He didn't mind going short, and now Man United have people willing to receive the ball when they go short. Luke Shaw and Euro want the ball. It's not Harry Maguire, shying from it. They played Mateus de Ligt higher up next to Casemiro. And then you got Dallo and Bruno and Mount all looking to receive the ball. And then if you go long, you got Embremo and Cunha always trying to do that as well. And you kept Dorgu always wide to be an option, and you kept Dallo wide as well, and they weren't shying from the ball either. And even when Arsenal had everyone covered, Bayendier was able to do very good with intermediate balls, firing them in to find Mount or find Cunha, find Bruno. Uh, it seemed like Arsenal were outnumbered somehow in midfield and finding those duels when Man United would go long because they would try to win that second ball. Man United were winning it, and then immediately after that, a run would be on, and the Man United were very good at finding those runs. And just the only negative for them is they weren't able to create so many of those transition moments into real goal scoring opportunities. A lot of the times when they were able to scare Raya, the shot would be a little bit weak or just right to him. A couple of times when Mateus Cunha was able to get the ball into the box in the second half, he had a turn that was Luis Suarez like, where he was able to get around Saliba, uh, and it was from the tight angle, but he got a shot on goal that probably should have scored versus most other keepers. Raya was able to get very low and to get a hand to that to stop that one. Uh, so that's where we kind of are for the first half, and it's just I don't think anyone would have expected that. Arsenal just and on the flip side, so Man United are able to find a way to get past Arsenal's press, for Arsenal aren't able to turn them over. And on the flip side, Arsenal did not try to play through Man United's midfield, and where people thought Man United were weak in midfield. Casemiro almost by himself. When you're just looking at it on the lineup sheet, why were you not able to just kind of play some clever balls through the midfield or try to do slowly work your way up? On goal kicks, Raya was going long almost every time and wasn't really being accurate. Arsenal were losing the ball when they were going long. Delict was playing really high up and was winning those headers. Casemiro probably played his best game that I think I've seen in a Man United shirt in at least a year, maybe ever. Casemiro is very good at just doing what he needed to do, recognizing when to be aggressive, when to challenge for a duel. He looked like he had some legs to him. Now, can that last over the season? I don't think so. But at least here, he looked very good. And Delict probably as fit and good as I've seen Delict looked as well, and he was being aggressive. Luke Shaw gets a start for Man United, and he was being aggressive. And again, ways we're not just really used to seeing. We're used to seeing Man United's kind of back line not help out the midfield, and that's usually where there's a giant gap where second balls and loose balls go to, where you can have someone run in and you get behind Casemiro, and then you basically have a back line in retreat mode. That's been Man United for 2 or 3 years. We did not see that this time. So maybe something Amorim has kind of clicked with them a little bit here. And then going forward, they've got they've got Mbemo, they've got Cunha that can get the ball and can carry it, 60 yards if they want to. You've got a lot of legs in that attack now. And Bruno is always going to be someone that can look to try to find them as well. And in this case, Mount was very good at finding them. Now that said, you spent 100 million on a guy that started on the bench in Benjamin Sesko. So who do you take out at that point? That's kind of the other thing as well. The squad building is still a little bit weird. You've spent a whole lot of money, and not really done much with the midfield, and not really done a whole lot with maybe with the keeper situation. Um, but that said, it does look like Man United will be a little bit better than we've seen. At least, I mean, you can't be worse. So they were relegation contender, or at least relegation form, the last 2 seasons. And so you got to be better after you spend that kind of money. They've got match winners now in the side, uh, and they were very good at being going forward and being transition minded. Now, how much of this is repeatable, I don't know, and I am sounding like a hater there. Bayern Deer, can he really be that good on the ball? And I'll get to the stats later on. I mean that because a lot of these were risky kind of passes that he was trying, and he was finding players, he was picking them out from 40 yards, like on a rope, on a line. Uh, I was that just a one-off or not? If it wasn't, yeah, they can maybe do some. Now he's got to be better at defending corner kicks. Uh, we'll kind of get to that as well. Lenny Yoro is now not he's not just 18 anymore. He's now 19. He's had a year in the league. He looked very good as well, and he had a very good preseason for them too. Um, Diego Dallo gets a start instead of Ahmad. Dallo played okay, but Ahmad Diallo came on and obviously was a little bit more kind of attack minded. I know, I've got a Man United buddy that really likes Ahmad Diallo, doesn't really love Diego Dallo, uh, but different spelling. Uh, but you're gonna have to maybe sacrifice a little bit there because that could be too attack minded. Ahmad Diallo is not really a defensive minded player. You get the ball in the box though, he's lightning quick. And he nearly did change the game a little bit. We'll see how Diallo and Brian and Brimo work out because the only negative to say there is they weren't always on the same page. Both have play on the right and both have a left foot. Don't really have a right foot, so you're not really going to have someone that keeps width the way that someone like Diego Dallo would. So that's kind of the only thing to say there. Mason Mount getting the start, that really was a surprise. And for him to play as well, I think was a surprise too. And it just felt the only kind of thing to talk about here is they were getting so many chances to get wide and to be threatening, and then there would be no one nearly in the box. And that's just kind of the only thing to say there. It's you solved one puzzle and then you've created a different one as well, and that I was thinking about a little bit with that with Liverpool. And then we get to Arsenal's lineup. We see a little bit of a surprise too. We see Ben White back in the lineup. Ben White did not have a good game either. I thought Patrick Dorgu was kind of bullying him a little bit. Mateus Cunha, when he was running on that side, was as well. Saliba and Gabriel off a hamstring, and he doesn't look himself either. It'll take some time to maybe get used to that. And then Ricardo Calafiore, who was moving into midfield and leaving that space. And I get the idea of it to kind of outnumber. Ricardo Calafiore is so big as well. Uh, and he wasn't just looking to just kind of be a passer. He was looking to make runs with the ball in midfield as well. And he was being threatening, and he basically is the reason why Arsenal do get the goal, not only because he scored it, but he created the corner kick as well. But I don't think after Arsenal got the goal lead, I thought Calafiori was hurting them because he was oftentimes leaving Brian and Bremer with loads of space behind him where it didn't feel like he thought he was threatening. And then whether or not it was Bruno or Mason Mount, they recognized that every single time, and it felt like the long switch was on if you could hit it with the right pace and uh, the right weight of pass, and they were doing it. Mason Mount was finding Brian Mbeumo like every single time, and it was really surprising to see because Arsenal were playing. You could almost say with four center backs here, And it's very funny because, Arteta doesn't like playing with fullbacks. I mean, I guess Ben White's maybe a fullback, but not really. And Ben White didn't really look that great going forward. I don't really feel like he offered soccer a whole lot of help. So I don't really understand what Ben White was doing. Gabriel didn't look like he had the right pace to his game either. So Calafiore was leaving him. You're playing a fullback. I mean, you're playing a center back, and he's still kind of leaving that space and doing other things. And I don't think Calafiore has the best kind of recovery pace for him either. So I don't understand it. Like someone like Lewis Skelly, I don't necessarily love either, just because he's so young. But he at least has some recovery pace to maybe help out a little bit there. I don't necessarily know if all this would have happened if he was playing. Calafiore did offer Martinelli a little bit of an overlap, at least in the beginning of the game, and that basically is how they get the corner kick that they score on. But this kind of lineup did not work out, and Arteta has to figure something out because he's so obsessed with being defensive, being the best defensive team in the league. You've, in a way, hurt yourself offensively by playing that many center backs, and weirdly enough, you've hurt your team, in other ways as well because you've realized that you need to do something to manufacture stuff. That's why you're making Calafiore leave that space, and it's hurting you. Now, in the past, Gabriel would have been able to, I think, a healthy Gabriel would have been able to snuff out some of those Brian and Bremo chances, and I don't think he's fully healthy. So that kind of, they went out and got someone like Mosquera, Christian Mosquera, or Mosquera, a center back from Spain. You might see him play more, than people maybe think, because I don't think Gabriel is fully there. Now you could play Calafiore almost as center back anyways, and then you could play a traditional kind of left back, or you could play Lewis Skelly. The other thing to talk about is Odegaard was supposed to be able to play, was supposed to kind of be the difference maker because he now had a striker to play with, and Gyökeres was doing what he could to make these runs. That's the other thing to talk about too. Arsenal have turned around and they've gotten their striker. They've been big spenders this season. They also brought in Noni Madueke, uh, and who was off the bench. And it just feels like Odegaard did not have his best game either. It was hard for him to get the ball. Saka, to me, people know what he wants to do now. There's never any kind of threat of going outside and taking a fullback to get behind them. Uh, and that's a pretty big problem to like you can't manufacture things anymore for Saka. And Odegaard, the only way to do is you have Odegaard be the one to run outside of him, and that's not the best use of Odegaard. And Ben White wasn't really offering that either. Saka wasn't really effective. Gilchrist was trying to make some runs, and Odegaard wasn't really finding him. And then Martinelli, likewise, it's Martinelli is Saka on the other side. And what I mean by that is you know what he's going to do when he gets the ball. He only wants to cut on to his 1 foot. And you're not again, Arsenal did not have this problem a couple years ago, and they do have it now. 2 or 3 years ago, Ben White would always be overlapping Saka. 2 years ago, you had Granit Xhaka that was overlapping Martinelli, or you had Kieran Tierney, uh, or yeah, if not Tierney, you had Zinchenko. Arteta has created a problem that he shouldn't have, and they've spent a lot of money too. So I don't know. A lot of people thought Arsenal were going to be the team that would actually win it this year because they went out and bought a striker. But I saw a lot of people online during the preseason when Arsenal lost to Tottenham and didn't look very good in a couple of the preseason games. Now they did end up beating a couple of Spanish teams towards the end. I saw a lot of people really complaining, at least in their Asian games, uh, that the structure itself is the problem. It's not replacing Gorkaresh for Havertz, or it's not replacing players and putting them back into the square holes. Essentially, it's you've got to change the system, the structure itself. And what we've seen so far is that's not really what we've done. We've seen Zubimendi replace Thomas Partey, and we've seen Gilgresh replace Havertz, and that's kind of it. Uh, and I think they slept themselves into trouble. They end up finding themselves with a goal lead after 12 minutes, where they had 8 passes that entire first 12 minutes. That's not, and the reason why that was happening is Man United were turning them over. Man United were able to go long and create some looks, and then it would be goal kicks, and then David Raya or Saliba, Gabriel would just go long, and then they'd lose the ball again. And then on the other side, when Man United had goal kicks or whatnot, Arsenal would try to press them into trouble, and Man United were able to get around it. And once you're able to get around a press, then that usually is where you can find some gaps, find where the open man is, and then you can really exploit, going high up. So if you're an Arsenal fan, you went to Old Trafford, usually a hard game. Apparently, they only win 1-0 ever since like the Premier League has actually been a thing. So going back to like early 90s, which is very weird to me. They only win 1-0 there or they lose. They've never had a two-goal victory there. So you get that out of the way. Maybe you can rebound. You got a promoted side in Leeds coming to your stadium next week, or you're playing Leeds next week. Maybe you can get going that way. Maybe you can get Gyökeres more involved. Gyökeres only played 60 minutes or so. Then Arteta hooked him for Havertz, and that didn't work out. It's not like Havertz offered more of a threat either. Uh, Gyökeres didn't look that great. He had a heavy touch. He looked like he had a heavy touch in Portugal. He's going to score goals though. You imagine it'll just take some time, but the creation for him needs to be Odegaard, and Odegaard wasn't looking for him at nearly the way that he should have been. Odegaard was looking to get his shot off, but yeah, Odegaard didn't have his best game either. It was just Arsenal entirely were just flat. We'll just kind of put it that way. Rice as well. That's really someone I've talked about. Maybe Zubimendi needs Rice to be kind of that the enforcement next to him, because if you play Mikel Marino, that's probably easier to run around too. So Rice helps out in that respect, but he really doesn't offer much going forward. And if nothing else, I think you need to change Rice's role to almost make runs outside and to be a decoy to maybe help out someone like a Martinelli or even a Madueke. Uh, Arsenal need to rotate some things. So it's first game of the season. It's not the end of the world. They actually win it, so you can't say anything negative there. But anyways, that's kind of where we are. Just kind of doing the recap that I normally do. Arsenal again just playing Calafiori in a funny way. And it leads to Man United's best moments. Mount has that switch to Mbembe like every single time. And they're able to find teammates when they go long, and again, very good distribution from Bayern. And then Bremo was bright to start, and then Mateus Cunha got into the action and turned into a different player entirely. He's always been one of the best ball carriers in the league, at least go in the past couple of years. But he looked Luis Suarez in some respects. He has a near wonder moment where he turns to Saliba in the box with a quick turn. He forces a very good Raya save, and then there's a moment where he straight up carries the ball 70 yards, just running through running past Zubimendi like he's not even there, running past Gabriel like he's not even there, uh, and he's able to basically run all the way from getting the ball from where he receives it to just being able to run all the way up. And Saliba does a pretty good job to at least close him down where he forces him to get a shot off, and unfortunately the shot is just right at Raya, and that's just where the danger comes from. This comes almost immediately after uh, Arsenal have a pretty good chance to score themselves. Gyökeres makes a pretty good run into the channel and then has a cross into the box, and Martinelli tries a bicycle kick and just comes off a little bit. It's he misses. It's a whiff, but the idea I guess was there. But from there, immediately Arsenal were counted on and probably should have conceded. There was another moment as well where Patrick Dorgu was able to get in behind, where it's a clever little link up play between Mateus Cunha and Mounts, and they're able to feed in Patrick Dorgu on the other side, where again, you're able to get behind Saliba. That's all the threat because Ben White has no legs to his game either. The injuries has caught up to him maybe, and Patrick Dorgu from pretty good distance. It's not really like it's a big chance, but he's able to hit the corner of the post, and just doesn't go in. Uh, but one thing to say as well, so I mentioned how Arsenal don't have a lot of passes to their game like they normally do. Arsenal did try to transition, and it just feels like it's a work in progress. I mean, and the problem for me is Gyökeres. It looks like they're trying to play to his strengths, and he was getting the ball in some pretty good areas and just had heavy feet. Made some wrong runs at times, you can say as well. I think that can be coached. That can be okay. Uh, There were a couple of moments as well where he would make some pretty good runs into channels, get the ball, and then there'd be no one in the box, no one to cross anything in as well. I mean, he's the number 9. He's supposed to be the one getting on the end of crosses, not being the creator out wide. You can say that as well. So he would usually go backwards, or sometimes he would take on defenders and just lose the ball. So again, it all a work in progress. I do think the first half, or really the game, is about Man United, not necessarily Arsenal, because again, Man United before the goal had almost 80% possession, and Arsenal had completed 8 passes, and that's because they were forcing Raya to press him into mistakes. They were marking high, they were being brave, they were playing a high line. Man United don't do that almost ever. You thought maybe Gilchrist would be able to bully Mateus Delict because we saw teams do that last season, and I think it's either a mix of Gilchrist not being up to speed yet, or Mateus Delict actually getting fit over the summer and looking better. Luke Shaw looking better. That's the best I've seen Luke Shaw look. Now it's easy to say that because he hasn't played for like 2 or 3 seasons. Uh, the addition of Patrick Dorgu, he at least is able to offer something going wide. Now he doesn't really have the best cross on him. That's the only kind of negative, but they did look promising as far as just kind of being an option. They didn't really have. They were playing Diego Dallo on that side last year, and he didn't really have any kind of threat to his game. So you're not going to be worse. You can't be worse than they were last season, and possibly they could be better. Now people are saying now they're going to be a Champions League contender. I'm not going to go there. I think they can maybe be eighth or ninth. Uh, Now, still a lot of the window left. Maybe they do bring in a goalkeeper. Maybe they do bring in a midfielder. I don't think believe is going to happen, but maybe they bring in someone like Lamine Kamara in to at least because you can't do Casemiro and you can't do Ugarte, and we'll get to that because Ugarte came on in the second half and was not good. The other thing to say too is you spent 100 million on Ben Chesko, a 6'6" striker was pretty good at being a goal scoring threat in Germany. But he's going to be reliant on people to find him. He's not really a create your own kind of shot kind of striker. He gets the ball and he's probably going to hit the ball from like 30 yards and try to score that way, or he'll be an option in the box for some heading. That money probably could have been spent upgrading a little bit more, kind of the midfield area. You have Amad Diallo that's now possibly on a bench option, or maybe you play him at wing back and you try to create a little bit that way. You've got a front line that can be very rotated. Mbemo can maybe play as your striker. Acuna can play on the left, can play through the middle. Uh, I don't know. It looked like they were trying to play Bruno Fernandez a little bit more kind of deeper, and he was very good at it. But you're taking away what he offers, and that's maybe kind of why they weren't able to score. They didn't have Bruno nearly as high up in the box as maybe you would like. Uh, but you got to do that because you're playing Casemiro as well. So you can't just play him by himself. So it is still a work in progress. But that said, this is going to take some time, and people have been saying 5 years. Uh, Imorm has come in. He's had a year where things did not work out. I still don't really know if I trust the system as well. One thing to say as well is this game was at least tieable, and Amorim still didn't veer from this three center back formation. Even when you needed a goal, you didn't bring off a center back to go for an attacker. He brought off Mateus Delict for Harry Maguire is kind of his main change. He did bring on Sesko, but it was like for like there. Uh, so I I do think there's ways for this to still improve a lot. I'm not gonna buy the Kool-Aid that all of a sudden Man United are gonna finish fifth or fourth, like I've seen some people predicting. Yes, they were very good, but they also Arsenal were as poor as they possibly could have been. And the other, I don't really know how repeatable this is as well for Man United to be able to do that. Like again, a lot of this is on the goalkeeper being able to do the balls that he was doing. The other thing too is one of the reasons why they were able to find those passes is but Mason Mount being played instead, and so you got to take Mason Mount out to try to fit in Benjamin Sesko, who's more kind of your number 9 that you paid a lot of money for. Benjamin Sesko is easily going to start some of these games soon. How does this all work out when everyone's actually in place? That I'm very skeptical of. I don't know how much Casemiro can do this again. I don't know how much, or at least over the course of the season. Uh, it does playing Bruno Fernandez a little deeper, does that end up hurting you? No, you'll probably play Mateus Cunha a little bit more on the left. Instead, it'd probably be a Sesko, Mateus Cunha, and Bremo kind of front three, at least as far as everyone healthy goes, and you can do some rotation where Bruno can come in. Um, but we'll see how this goes or not. I do think it was more about Man United than Arsenal, but Arsenal played a role. 39% possession, only 9 shots, and only 3 on target. Uh, that's just not good enough. And Arsenal, one of the teams now that just do not get their fullbacks involved at all. Even if Miles Lewis Skelly is playing, he's not going to be. Uh, he's going to be trying to maybe make some channel runs into the box. He's not going to be something. He's not going to be running outside of Martinelli. So yeah, that's kind of where we are there. There was a kind of some controversy as well. Controversy for the goal. Controversy in the second half where it looked like Saliba clipped Cunha in behind, so that could have been a PK as well. Uh, Man United, had some crossing situations, just weren't able to really take advantage there. So other points. Uh, that's just kind of it. I don't think it's a game anyone was expecting, and I kind of already said that before. So, talking a little bit about Man United, they have spent a lot of money to improve the attack. It does look improved. Amad Diallo doesn't start. He came on in the second half, did look threatening, but that pairship with Embremo and Diallo could be improved because both were basically making the same decisions. Both were running into the same areas. Basically, there was one moment when Brian Embremo had a chance to maybe go for goal after a really nice Mateus Cunha pass, and they basically ran into each other. And I think Diallo even took the shot off him, and it basically ended up deflecting out for a corner kick. Um, but there are some negatives. Kobe Mano isn't even the name I've mentioned, and he wasn't really used. Ugarte came on and did not look great. That's worth saying as well. Uh, and so that's just where we are for there. And then for Arsenal points, mixed reactions for the debuts of Jokeresh, Zubimendi, and Madueke. Madueke came on and was almost like your fullback. He was defending more than able to go forward, and he didn't look good defending either. That's basically when Amad Diallo was starting to look like he was, prime Salah, the way he was just going past him for fun. That this could be a problem. So we'll see how it is or not. One thing to say though is there have been multiple years where neutral observers have been begging Arsenal to be more transition minded. They're the team that came up with field tilt stuff, which is something I've still never heard anyone else say before. But I get it. There could be the idea of it does make sense. Uh, but the reason why there was field tilt stuff is they for so many years have not wanted to go forward. They have not tried to be a transition team. Here we saw that. They were trying to go forward. Odegaard was getting the ball and dribbling it up, trying to get to Saka, trying to get to Martinelli, trying to get to Gyökeres. So that's a positive. It just wasn't coming off. But with more kind of more practice, more reps, maybe it will, and maybe we will see Arsenal being a more transition based, forward attacking kind of team, and that could make them more exciting as well. The biggest thing that I'm confused about is you bring in Martin Zubimendi to be the controller. Now that's something that Partey was offering you, and I think Zubimendi, younger, obviously, Partey doesn't, or Zubimendi doesn't have the rep that Partey has as well. Yeah, having those things about him being an abuser or even a rapist, and Arsenal playing him over the last season, knowing that there was that kind of rap about him, and finally it's come out that is the case, and they've since dropped him now. Uh, but anyways, you're replacing that with Zubimendi, who is supposed to be kind of a similar kind of tempo setter, and not him not being a rapist is obviously a positive as well. And you didn't use him. You, you it's one thing to say Arsenal to be a transition kind of team. Some of those cases, they weren't, a transition is when you go forward with the ball, you go long with the idea in mind that you have a purpose. You know what you're doing. You're not just going long just to hoof it. You're going long because you see someone making a run and it's on, or you have an ability to play someone that again a run is on. Here, they were just booting it to boot it, and you're bypassing Zubimendi where he can help you out the most. And I just thought Raya and the center backs had probably their worst games, at least as far as in possession. Raya was spectacular, at least as far as stopping the goals. Uh, and Saliba got away with a couple of defensive decisions that could have led to different outcomes, but he was able to get away with it. So, and already talked a little bit about Calafiore. Still kind of confused there. Lewis Skelly could be the play, but again, that and Declan Rice's role. So there's still things to talk about here. Uh, and Gabriel. He had that hamstring injury, and I don't think he's fully recovered. So that's where we are for Arsenal as well. And then we get to Tottenham and Burnley, see how we're doing for time and try to speed this up a little bit. Tottenham and Burnley 3-0. Richarlison, Richarlison again with almost a bike. The first goal was quite good for Richarlison as well, and then Brennan Johnson quickly made it 3-0. Burnley were better than the scoreline showed. We can kind of say that. A couple of moments where uh, Tottenham did have to have some pretty nice recovery defending by Mickey Van de Ven, by Bassar as well. Uh, but and basically what they do is they concede two absurd goals by Richarlison, just spectacular finishes. One where he's running backwards to the goal and is able to kind of get a volley, a half foot kind of volley for the first one, first touch, and then the second one, and he does a bicycle. I mean, that's it is what it is. Clap your hands for that. Kudus with two assists as well. And what I liked about Kudus is he was offering creation with both his left foot and right foot. It looks like he is two-footed, being played on the right. We saw almost kind of a free roll, kind of a striker roll versus PSG, but played a little bit more off the right, and he was good. He was ball to feet. Able to offer some runs as well. Able to offer some kind of defensive help as well. He was quite impressive, and that's one of the signings that they've made, and he looks quite worth what they've brought him in for. He's always been a player that he was played at West Ham. You can't play him in Bowen's position, and maybe you play him as a 10, or maybe you play him on the left. And last season, he also, I think actually it was for Spurs. Funny enough, he ended up getting sent off early in the season and didn't really crack on after that. Apparently, he had a big falling out with the coach at West Ham, and that maybe was one of the reasons why Lopetegui ended up losing his job. And then they bring Graham Potter in. It just Mateus Cunha had a wonderful first year with West Ham, and then just wasn't able to get going in the second half. So maybe Tottenham saw a way to just kind of so you see someone that's a gem that was maybe available for on the cheap, and they brought in a very good player for them. And then Richarlison is someone that's been injured, the last couple of seasons. He's battled depression that he's spoken about as well, and he looks like he's found a place where he's going to be loved. There's Dominic Solanke is supposed to be kind of the striker in front of him. And Solanke he doesn't score the type of goals that you would like. Now, maybe that'll change. And we saw at the before Spurs got him, he was a goal scoring threat for Bournemouth, but Richarlison has to maybe like his options of being able to play ahead of Solanke because he can do the link up play as well. And one of the reasons they get the third goal is Richarlison they go long and Richarlison does a really good job to bring it down, and then he has a nice little layoff to Sarr, and then Sarr's able to play in. Brennan Johnson making him run behind. So Richarlison has to like where he's at right now. And Richarlison was very good versus PSG as well. And that's kind of, one of the headlines to talk about is Tottenham off their nearly win versus PSG. Now, they threw away the goals late, and Thomas Frank maybe didn't have the best kind of subs there. But there were a loads of positives in that game, two being Kudus and two being Richarlison, mostly because they were very good. PSG are a team that is trying to press, that is trying to get the ball off you, and both are very, very good at just being able to bully people off and being able to just withstand pressure and be a goal threat as well. And we saw that for both. We saw that here as well. And so one of the things to talk about is Tottenham did go on to win a trophy, and then they replaced their coach. Uh, and they bring in Thomas Frank of Brentford, and interesting to kind of see what he did versus PSG. He did what he did at Brentford. One of the teams where he figured his team wasn't going to have the majority of the ball. He did play with three center backs. He did play with Danzo, uh, Romero, and Van de Van, and it nearly got them a surprise and shock win in the Super Cup. But instead, he had to make some subs. He had to take Kudus off. You understand that. You save some legs. He had to bring Richarlison off. Mateus Tell came on, and he looked a bit of a disaster. Zelensky didn't really offer much either. You took Sarr off later on as well for Archie Gray.
Archie Gray wasn't able to get on the ball. Spurs weren't able to keep the ball at all. They just kept going long and more. PSG were able to get onto the ball more and more, able to get dangerous things into the box. PSG made some changes as well that kind of changed things around in that game too. He brought on, Enrique finally had enough and brought on Lee Kang in. He actually moved Dembele. He took off Desiree Dore, who wasn't really playing in an attacking minded position. He was more kind of playing in midfield, and that wasn't really working out. So brought on Fabian Ruiz, changed the midfield to more of kind of a 4-3-3 kind of shape to bring on Ruiz and Zemir Emery and then Vitinha. And then you have Lee Kang in to almost be kind of like your number 10. And then what he did was he took off Bradley Barcola and took off someone else, and basically what he did is he moved Dembele out to the right. He brought on Goncalo Ramos to play, and then he brought on Mbaye, I believe. One of the players that they ended up scoring in the Champions League final. I think he scored the fifth goal. Still a young kind of winger as well. But what he did is he moved Dembele over to the right, and finally he had someone able to get by Spence. In the second half, what you did is a couple of Dembele crosses created the goals. Lee Ka-ing had a great shot for one of them, and then the second one, Dembele was able to just get behind Spence, and it's a nice little play by Hakimi, able to feed him in, and then Dembele is able to get the cross in, and where you actually have a number 9, where Dembele is more kind of a false 9 creator, now you have a striker into the box, make it a run into the 6-yard area, and he's able to get that in, and then they win on the PKs. Uh, so a lot though of positive to take from that. One, I don't think the Spurs with Ange would have been nearly that kind of way. Would have gone in with three center backs. Now they funny enough they did win the Europa final because they played very defensive minded, but still that completely changing the structure I think would have been different, and it worked here. It also helped that you're playing three center backs against Dembele, who's not really caring about trying to run in, and you've got center backs that have the pace to keep up with them as well. So that was hurting them. That was hurting PSG. It was a good way to play them, and unfortunately for them, just PSG were able to nick something at the very end when it didn't really feel like they deserved it. But Enrique did make the right changes, and maybe Frank did not. They Spurs also lost James Madison. They've lost Son. They've lost Kulishevsky for a couple of months for injury as well. Big players that they've relied on in the past to be on the ball to withstand pressure. Once you took Kudus and Richarlison off, you didn't have that. Mateus Dell could not hold on to the ball. Neither could Solanke. The midfield couldn't do anything either, and it just got to a point they were pinned in. They had put so much money or so much energy into that performance, and the legs got shot, and they just could not get out of their own end, and that's basically how PSG were able to get on them. Um, and the other things to talk about is they were competitive versus Newcastle and also beat Arsenal in a friendly when Arsenal played mostly a full 11. So lots of optimism maybe for Thomas Frank Spurs. Coming in, they've spent a little bit too. They're linked now to Eberiche Eze as well to come in. And they've lost James Madison to a pretty bad injury, so I don't know how long he's out. And they've lost Kulishevsky as well, so they are a little thin as far as creative players go. So, and Thomas Frank really did kind of struggle with that at Brentford. That until he got someone like a Damsgaard, they were more kind of an industrial kind of manufactured, created team with chaos, not really clever link up play and passing patterns. Someone like Ezra coming in can do that. So we'll see if him or Kudus could be your number 10. So we'll see if that's the idea as well. Uh, I really like what I've seen from Archie Gray and Bergvall. And we saw that actually be the lineup versus Burnley, and one of the reasons why Burnley were trying to press Spurs into danger, and Spurs were able to go long and then find Richarlison, and he was linking up with Bergvall, making a run off, off him. So you saw some midfield running with Bergvall and Sarr, and I thought Gray was pretty good as far as being a controller, being a distributor, being not really losing the ball, being competent in duels as well. Uh, I think Archer Gray is going to be seen a little bit the way we see Adam Wharton on Crystal Palace. I think a lot of teams are going to like him as the season goes. That could be a failure or not. He's been linked. He's been liked a lot, at least in the young England camps. And we'll see. He's got the nepotism name on his sides. Maybe that's kind of driving the hype a little bit too, as he is Andy Gray's son. Um, but to me, he's looked good. And we've seen Thomas Frank, use someone like a Christian Norgard in that kind of area as well. So we'll see. We'll see how he's able to handle, this Man City press that's going to be coming at him. We'll see how Thomas Frank plays. Maybe he doesn't even play. Maybe he'll play Basuma there instead, and Basuma Sarr and Bergvall will kind of be the idea. Or they spent some money to bring in Yao Polina of formerly of Fulham, and then now to Bayern Munich. Polina didn't start this game, and maybe that probably will be who plays versus Man City. Now that I think about it, Thomas Frank will probably do what he did versus PSG. But we'll see. We'll see how that shakes up a little bit there. But I liked what I saw, at least for Burnley, with Bergvall and Gray being played together, and then Sarr always offers you that energy. Maybe played a little bit more kind of the industrial kind of 10, but he was creative too, and he was doing a pretty good job to offer himself to make some runs as well. Yours a Poor that can be a creator as well, and the only negative to Spence's game is he doesn't really have a left foot. He's very good defensively though, so uh, you don't have Destiny Udogie for a little bit, so it looks like Spence might actually be your left back. But the only negative there is he doesn't really have. He always when he makes runs up the channel, he always wants to try to get the ball back onto his right foot. Sometimes that works out, but sometimes that could be a little bit of a negative. But also defensively, he's very good, and he was very good for PSG as well. So uh, I think that's all to say about that. 16 and 6, 2.3 XG. Majority possession is what you can say, but Burnley did nearly have one XG. Burnley played okay. 181 passes, 74%. Probably not what you would like, but there were moments. There were moments where Burnley got Laos Foster in some danger, or Jaden Anthony, where Vicario had to make a couple saves, or not Richarlison, or Mickey Van de Ven, or Sarr had to do some defending into the box, and so that's kind of where we are with there. Last thing to talk about with Spurs is they were more direct than maybe we've seen in the past. They did get lots of touches into the box, and we saw that with Brentford. Frank likes an attack-minded lineup versus, I guess, like the quote unquote weaker sides. Like you can say we did see that with Brentford, and we saw flat back five as PSG. So we'll probably see that throughout the season. But they were trying to get the ball in the box. They were doing lots of crosses in early crosses, and Richarlison was able to get on the end of a couple of those. Uh, but it does feel like they are a little bit weak on the bench. So someone like an Eze joining would help them out a lot. And then we'll get to Sunderland and West Ham. Probably our first upset of the season. See how we're doing for time. Could be worse. Could be better. Uh, Not much to really talk about the game. I mean, it is an upset. So we get a Mayenda with a cross, finds him in the box, and then a Dengra off a basically recycled corner kick is able to get across as well. And they're able to get that corner kick because it's just a really poor pass by one of the West Ham defenders. I think it's Max Kilman, just loses the ball, and then Dengra's able to take it off him, and then he's able to run and manufacture a corner kick, and they score off that corner kick with Ballard. Ballard in that first half, also had a goal, basically saved a goal by clearing it off the line. So Ballard had a pretty good game for his debut or EPL debut. And then Isiodor towards the very end, a breakaway on a West Ham corner kick. Sunderland don't really know what to make of them. They did show that they can be direct. Mayenda has some pace to him. Dengra as well. I actually thought I really liked what I saw in their midfield. With Granit Xhaka, kind of being the midfield general next to someone like Diarra and Sadeki. Diarra was doing a pretty good job, in my opinion, of making some runs into channels and making some, just making some midfield runs to just be ahead of the ball. Talby as well looks like he was doing a pretty good job to offer some width. It did feel like Sunderland had pretty good spacing, and pretty good formation where they had most of the pitch covered. And then the back line will Selt I think got an injury, and they had to bring someone else in, and his replacement actually is the one that had the cross in for the first goal, where Sunderland West Ham were just laying off them. And you allow a center back to be that high up in the pitch and just send a ball into the box, and then West Ham have three center backs, and just Max Kilman loses to a Mayenda ball, and it's hopeful, but hey, you allow a team to just get across a free cross in, no pressure near the ball, and you set yourself up for something like that to happen. Graham Potter, I think towards the end talked about how it was a pretty nothing game, and just the goals kind of changed it, and that's probably true. But the thing to say is this is a your West Ham team that people are try to give some optimism for. You didn't have the worst U.S. Tour in the preseason, and at a minimum, you were even as far as the gameplay went with a team that was just promoted. So there were alarm bells here. Um, Ward-Prowse and Rodriguez they did not look like they had legs in midfield. You have Wan-Bissaka and Diop being basically your wing backs, and they're very wide up. You have Todibo and Kilman and a guard here playing a back three, and a guard could not defend the channels to save his life, and neither could Kilman. You don't really want Kilman to defend channels, but Kilman didn't really have legs to really help out either. Ward Prowse was kind of leaving him a little bit stranded, so it did feel like Sunderland were able to run past him, and they got a couple chances that way. You have Picata that can always be a danger, and you have Bowen. Fulkrug didn't really offer much, and I thought West Ham were defending very narrow with Picata, Fulkrug, and Bowen, trying to defend a little bit more of the middle, but they were leaving the channels and they were leaving the wide spaces open, and that's basically where Sunderland were able to get on the ball and get some crosses into the box. So yeah, Grant Potter's got some things to work on here. They've lost Mohamed Kudus to Spurs, and he didn't always hit the ground running for them, but that's still a player that they probably need to think about replacing. Doesn't look like they've done that. They have someone like Guillaume that looked pretty good in the U.S. preseason tour. I don't know if he was on the bench, but we didn't see him in this game. Maybe he's injured. And they have Christianti Somerville to maybe come on and do some things as well. But the midfield looked weak. There's no Edson Alvarez. Maybe they're looking to maybe ship him out actually, and that could be a problem too because I feel like he helps the midfield a little bit there. A guard looked off it. We haven't seen him for a while, and Kilman looked off it. So, uh, and Tadibo was getting run past too. So, West Ham could be if you're looking for a team that could maybe struggle a little bit this season. And they did not do well last season with Grant Potter either. Grant Potter came in, and it took like I don't know 8 or 6 tries for them to get a result, and they got a result by being, but basically Mo Kudus being unbelievable. Mo Kudus and Jared Bowen, was doing like a two man show versus Arsenal. Uh, but they they were very flat, even with Graham Potter last season. Graham Potter got like 11 or 10 games, or even more. And to get a start like here, this has to be troubling for both West Ham and Graham Potter. And I don't know. You look at teams that can maybe go down. This isn't a bad one to look at. Bowen did look dangerous. Worth saying that. But all that danger happened in the first half. Once West Ham went down, it didn't really feel like they were able to offer anything, and they brought on Callum Wilson, formerly of Newcastle, and he wasn't able to really offer much either. Zero point 0.5 xG for West Ham, zero point 0.6 for Sunderland. So a lot of those goals were hopeful, you can say. Only 5 shots and two on target. And then with West Ham, 12 and 4. But that they looked rough. 250 passes for Sunderland. They were looking to try to go long to try to just kind of be hopeful. 468 passes for West Ham. They had a lot of the ball, but a lot of it was just kind of side to side. When the center backs had the ball, Sunderland did not really care. I mean, again, this only matters when you have a lead and you need a team to actually run at you. If you don't have the lead, again, it's just kind of it's empty calories in that respect. Maybe it's celery. um, it's not necessarily harmful for you, but it doesn't really do much for you either. That's actually not a bad comparison. Uh, it's just yeah, and again, you're down a man. You need to go get a goal, and you don't ship from your back three situations. So and people were making some fun out of Morim and Graham Potter, in that respect too. I mean, the run is this is a problem too. 109 kilometers versus 107, so you run out, you outrun, and then sprints 92 sprints for Sunderland and 93 for West Ham. That low for both as well. So. Uh, I mean, the things to talk about with Sunderland is it's a team with legs. Mayenda, Adingra, Diarra, Sadiki in midfield. They can make forward runs, which is needed if you're going to be a side that's not going to dominate the ball. You need to be able to offer some kind of counter to advance the ball. And they showed they have that in the forward line. They showed they can stretch the ball out, stretch the pitch out wide as well with Tadibi and Adingra. Granit Xhaka back into the league. They have done some spending. To say to bring Xhaka back in, just to offer some direction, to be a little bit of midfield. Didn't really do much with the ball, but at least you saw him kind of pointing to where people needed to be. Uh, they've done the force thing. They have done some spending. They got a Dingra from Brighton, and the Dingra got an assist. It looks like they've been linked to someone like Yassim Yayemi, a center back at Bologna that has looked promising when I've watched him. I've actually liked him as someone that maybe Liverpool should target. So if they could bring him in, that gives them a little bit more depth as well. And for a lot of the teams that a lot of the there's been a trend on teams being promoted into the league and then immediately going down. One of the reasons that's been is they've tried to basically try to be like Man City. They try to be very possession dominant. They try to dominate the ball. What they haven't always had is lots of athleticism on out wide to be able to stretch. So Sunderland do look like they have it. And the other thing too is they've been very vulnerable defensively with the center backs. They've not had prem level center backs or keeper. The keeper made a couple really good saves as well. That's what we're saying as well with Ross. This game easily could have been 2-2 or 1-1. Ross had to make some pretty big saves. The keeper, maybe you have the keeper situation okay, and the center backs looked okay. We'll see how Ballard does versus better teams. They lost one of the center backs already to injury, but the other guy came in. They said he was a Uruguayan international, and he had an assist. And you bring in maybe Yaimi or Yasimi. Yeah, I don't know. It did feel like there was hope for Sunderland for a lot of people as maybe the club to kind of look at. The other one was Leeds, but I think that's more because they have Prem kind of prestige. But this could be a year where we see multiple. You'll say when you look at the kind of the 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 mainstays over the years. You have your Brentfords, your Evertons, your West Hams, your Wolves. They've been able to stave off over the last couple of seasons by either sacking the manager and making some pretty good hires, or just for the most part being more physical than the other teams below them, and the other teams haven't been able to get anything more than a couple anything close to 30 points essentially. I don't necessarily know if that's going to be the case this time, and a lot of those clubs have PSR issues that's starting to kind of hurt them too. They can't really do a whole lot of spending without getting things out. Uh, I don't know. I don't really know if necessarily that's going to happen or not, but I do feel like this year could possibly buck the trend. But we'll be optimistic at least. We'll say that. And with West Ham, you lost Kudus. The other thing to say too, as well, is they've got some players that they could uh, Dan Potts, I think, was mostly kind of featuring a little bit in the summer tour. We didn't see him at all. Maybe that'll be the kind of idea as well. I think they have someone named Cresswell, or they had another player, young player that they can maybe kind of feature as well. Maybe they might have to lead a little bit on the youth because they don't have legs here. One of the changes the Graham Potter made when they were down a man was to bring on 30-plus-year-old Thomas Suchek. I don't necessarily know if that's enough to really do it. Can Bowen really do a carry job, a complete carry job? I mean, Nicholas Fulkrug looked like he had no legs at all. When West Ham were trying to defend, the other thing to say as well is they were playing kind of narrow. Again, like Paqueta, Fulkrug, and Bowen were just kind of very kind of close next to each other, only a couple yards apart, and that was leading the spaces out wide. And I think they were trying to do that to just to make the ball go out wide, and maybe they could just try to win the ball that way. But I just didn't feel like they had really an idea of what to do out of position, out of possession, to really force turnovers, to either pressing wise or otherwise, other than just a team making a mistake when maybe they shouldn't have. So that's where we are for that game. The other thing to talk about with Sunderland is that stadium is loud. And I've always heard jokes about the Stadium of Light. That was impressive. It became impressive on TV, and I think that they said the capacity was only something like 45,000. They sounded louder than Anfield. So that crowd is going to be able to maybe help them kind of stay up as well. So we'll see if Sunderland can be one of those teams to kind of buck the trends or not. And then to move on to another game, Brighton and Fulham. Neither of these teams we think are going to be in that kind of conversation, though. Fulham have done nothing in the summer, but maybe that'll be okay. And they, find a way to do nothing in the game and still get out with a point. So we have Matty O'Reilly with a PK, and then a nice little Jorginho rudder, run kind of draws it almost like a. This is almost similar to the Ekekite goal, where he's able to drop in, and then there's a little space in, and then there's a nice little layoff by Dekaipa to that. Then he's able to just kind of run to the run into that little space with the ball, and he's able to drag. I think it's Sasa Lukic who's able to just kind of bring him down into the box, and then Matty O'Reilly converts the PK. And then Brighton had a number of moments to win the game. Ruder came off for Welbeck, and Welbeck was able to help cause a turnover late, where it looked like he played in, where Diego Gomez came in and played in. I believe it was Grota, and Grota just kind of missed it. And they had a couple of moments as well. I think there were a couple of times when Minta was wide open in the box and just kind of blasted it over when maybe he should have done better. They weren't able to get that second goal, and then towards the very end, uh, Fulham Fulham just started to really up the pressure a little bit, started to get the crosses in. There was a couple of moments where actually where maybe Brighton even got lucky not to give away a PK. First Baliba and then Ayori, catching in a little bit late, but the ref didn't call anything. But a couple of times, the more in the second half when Iwobi was able to get forward, he was able to cause some danger, and he hit across the Kenneth Tade on the back post. Probably should have buried towards the very end, and then Emil Smith Rowe came off the bench and was able to just get a shot, hopeful shot, forced a save, and then Fulham basically score on the corner kick where Rodrigo Munez was able to, off the bench, was able to convert the last minute kind of heroic, finish for the draw to rescue a point. The headlines to talk about here is Brighton have been linked. Brighton's Baliba has been linked to Man United the whole summer. Brighton are going to demand a ransom, which they probably should because watching this game, this was one of the the 10 a.m. windows on Saturday when all those games are happening here. Kind of regretted not watching the Sunderland game, looking back, but I watched this one. Not a lot happened in this one, but you saw just how quickly Baliba is at recovering ground and being able to get to the ball. Uh, the thing I texted to my friends is he's like Ibrahima Kanate in midfield. Because I've seen Kanate being able to do that too, just being super aggressive, where someone shows up to the ball, is able to get coming from behind, is able to get a go to ground and win the ball back. Maybe he gets the player too, but being able to win the ball first and just in a way that just should not happen. Baliba has that. He was everywhere, and he was pretty good with the ball as well. Uh, and then the other things to talk about: Brighton have lost João Pedro to Chelsea, and it looks like maybe Jorginho Rutter is going to be the man tasked with replacing him. But he had a similar role last year, so we don't really know how that'll hurt Brighton or not. He's not really a striker though, so we saw Welbeck coming on and playing a little bit differently. I do feel like you could play them both, but we'll see how that kind of goes throughout the season. Uh, they haven't really replaced. They haven't brought anyone else in. They have lost Semin Dingra, who could have been an option as well, but they have Matoma and Menta, and then Rudder can either kind of drop in. Rudder has a little of Ekitite's game to him, in my opinion. Not necessarily a negative, but also again he likes dropping in and likes trying to link up play. And then what that means is you can play people ahead of you, and you've got legs in Menta and Matoma, but they've in those kind of situations, they're gonna have to do everything by themselves. They don't have a striker that's gonna be ahead of them either. So a lot of teams are kind of getting stuck a little bit with that. Uh, Rudder didn't look bad though. He had a couple really nice, clever flicks when he was dropping in. He was doing pretty well to link things, and there was some of this play that looked like Liverpool in the way that they were able to transition. Just wasn't fully coming to pass. And the other thing to talk about with Brighton is you look at that lineup and this looks like it could be special in many ways. And then you look at Lewis Dunk and nothing to really go at him negatively about. Just they're going to play a high line, and Dunk's always going to be a little bit vulnerable as well. And he's just slower. He doesn't have the pace to his game. Brighton did make a couple center back signings in the summertime, and we'll see if maybe eventually they do show up. They're using Reifer now at right back, and that's kind of been a thing that they've used for the last couple of games towards the end of the season. He looked pretty good for them too, but he's not really going to be able to offer Menta a whole lot going forward. De immediately come in. They lose Estupian and they bring in De from Club Brugge. He was good. And it just kind of unfortunate that he wasn't able, if you're playing fantasy, able to get the clean sheet because of the last minute concession. So uh, Brighton were good. Maybe but they easily could have been better. And then Fulham didn't really play the best game, and they were still able to get away with a point, and that's all they're going to care about. With Tete, Anderson, Cuenca, no Anthony Robinson, so they played Calvin Bassey at left back instead, more of kind of a center back. Berga, Luca, and then Josh King instead of Emil Smith Rowe was a little bit of a surprise, and then Harry Wilson, Jimenez, and Irobi. Uh, Josh King actually played all right. To be honest, he forced a pretty good Verbruggen save. I drew. He was one of the ones that nearly drew a PK. And but Emil Smith Rowe came on and also was able to force a late save and was able to created that thing that led to the corner kick. So not a lot in the game itself. 50% each possession, 10 shots for Brighton, only 7 and 2 on target for Fulham. Brighton 10 and 4 shots on target. Uh, that's just kind of all there is to say about there. The one kind of negative is Matty O'Reilly gets the PK, and he's kind of an industrial number 10. He doesn't really have playmaker kind of feel to it, and Fulham have Fulham are just very good at staying in games. It's what they do under Marco Silva. It's probably the reason why they're not going to go down if as long as they keep him because they do stay in games. Fulham did really nothing throughout the most of the game, but it was still only 1-0. They're good defensively. They're good, good out of possession. And it just felt like Brighton needed to have some magic to be able to create a little bit more, and it didn't feel like Matty O'Reilly was able to really offer that. Now his numbers say he's a great creator, but anytime I watch him in that 10 role, I don't really see it. Now he did score the PK, and he is linked maybe to a move to Juventus. Um, I feel like someone like a Gruda there, or maybe even a Rudder there, could maybe help out more. Then you could play Welbeck ahead. Welbeck didn't to get a didn't wasn't able to start, but was able to get off the bench. Welbeck's off his best season as a senior for Brighton. I think he had the first season he had more than double digit goals. So uh, there's a lot to like about Brighton, but at the same time, this is the kind of game where you look. This is why they didn't get Europe last season. This is probably the reason why until they change some things, probably the reason why the same will happen here. They did spend a lot of money last season as well. So to not get Europe maybe hurts them a little bit, and it's possible they could do it, believe a sale if a big price tag comes to them. The other thing to say about too is they already had his replacement in the squad in Diego Gomez, in my opinion. He they even subbed Believer off, and Gomez came on and played pretty well. So uh, that's just where we are for Brighton and for Fulham. I don't think there's much to say really about them. They haven't done anything outside of maybe they have some players maybe linked to leave in Rodrigo and Munoz to Atalanta. Uh, that would hurt them because there have been a couple of games where Jimenez hasn't looked himself, and then it's been pretty good to have Munoz just off the bench. But I think Munoz is even a better striker. So losing him could maybe hurt them a little bit. No Anthony Robinson here, that maybe hurt them a little bit with Iwobi not being able to offer much going forward. So that's where we are for them. And then we get to Aston Villa and Newcastle. This one ends 0-0. The things to talk about with Newcastle is they want to hold on to Isak, and I don't blame them. But without them, he they their attack, their team is incomplete because Anthony Gordon through the middle, I don't really think works. And Eddie Howe keeps trying it. I understand they don't really have anything else, but it really did not work for me. And the front line they went with was uh, to uh, uh, it was Harvey Barnes, Anthony Gordon through the middle, and then Alanga. And you've got creation, you've got some pace in that 11 or in that front line, but what you don't really have is a target man. And the problem for Newcastle is once Aston Villa lost a man going to ground. Funny enough, it put the game maybe in Aston Villa's favor because Aston Villa were not leaving those gaps in behind where that was the only way Newcastle were going to score is if Aston Villa were playing a high line and maybe a ball in behind on Konsa or Mings or whatever would have been able to force some danger, and that's what happened in the first half, and it forced the Aston Villa keeper to make a pretty good save on Anthony Alenga. In the second half, it looks like Gordon was going to get behind, and Mings just or Konsa just decided to eat it and took the red card. And then from there, Aston Villa were not able to really do anything other than just kind of defend the point. They were able to get it. Aston Villa have lost, don't have Marcus Rashford like they had last season, and they've got PSR issues apparently. So they've had to sell people like Jacob Ramsey. Funny enough, to Newcastle. Uh, but you look at this side, and it feels incomplete to me a little bit here. The wide players were John McGinn and Morgan Rogers, and so no Liam Bailey. It looks like they've sold him as well. Uh, they have someone like a Daniel Mallon that can maybe come in, but that to me is troubling. And you got Ollie Watkins maybe making the runs himself, but you don't really have creation there. Morgan Rogers can be a runner, but we saw him in his best position last year is kind of underneath Watkins, be able to run through the middle. He's not really someone to be out wide and to really be a creator himself. And John McGinn likewise. John McGinn can offer you some pretty good defensive cover. He can maybe for cash, but he's not going to be again a creator. And so you look at this Aston Villa side, they're struggling for that. You've got Tielemans that can maybe find some people, but the side that just the way you're looking at them here, and it's really unfortunate because they possibly could have won the Champions League last season. They nearly went out to PSG, and in that second game, I thought they were better than PSG in that second half. Uh, but they had Rashford, for a lot of that stretch, and they just missed out on the Champions League for a really bad call versus Man United, where it looks like there could have been a PK or even a red card when Onana went to ground and caught Watkins in the box. So they didn't get that to go their way, and they ended up losing that game. When I think if they had won it, Villa might have even been in the Champions League over Newcastle, but instead they missed out, and they that that's gonna hurt them. It hurts them for PSR reasons, but it hurts them otherwise too. And you look at this here, you look at this now, and it's a side uh, that can frustrate a lot of teams, and they'll be good at home. But I don't see them being a Champions League or top four contender like I have in the past because you don't see that depth, and they've been linked to Ollie Watkins maybe being out. They have been linked to maybe bringing attackers in. Evan Gezered of Nice, I think, has been linked to maybe come in. So we'll see. We'll see if they are able to upgrade the attack a little bit. Right now, it's just Watkins by himself, and they look thin. They look stretched, and especially out wide, they don't look like they have a whole lot either. And I don't think it's the best way to use Morgan Rogers, but here, uh, you're able to get the point despite being outplayed. Newcastle are going to kick themselves for not getting more in this game. And again, it's one of those cases where if they had Isak, this game probably would have been won comfortably. To be honest, once Aston Villa went into that low block, there was just no way for Newcastle to create other than maybe some hopeful shots. They did have a couple moments where Gordon was able to get the ball in the box, and just a shot was blocked when it needed to be. Newcastle with a 1.4 xG, so that kind of says a little bit there. Aston Villa with zero point 0.2, and the shots was 3-1 versus 16, and only three on target. So Newcastle were getting some looks, but just not able to really make anything really threatening. And the one thing to talk about here as well is Anthony Lenga comes in and gets a start, but you're taking Anthony Lenga is just pace for days and is going to be able to get in behind, and he's got a good cross on him, and the thing he was known for Forrest was being able to really, set some really great balls in for Chris Wood. It wasn't necessarily the most kind of goal scorer, you can say. And when you don't have a striker, that can kind of be a problem a little bit here. He would have set something up for Isak. The thing I'm getting at here is Anthony Lingard's come in, and that's sent Jacob Murphy to be out. And, it's funny enough, Jacob Murphy is someone that, Newcastle fans haven't always loved, even though he's kind of been a mainstay with them over the years, is he probably had his best season last season for them. Actually, not even I don't even think that's an opinion. That's just a fact. And a lot of the reasons why Newcastle kind of were able to get, to keep on that Champions League kind of push. It wasn't even Isak. Isak wasn't scoring a lot of goals for them towards the end of the year. It was Murphy. Murphy was huge for them. It wasn't even Anthony Gordon either. It was Murphy and Harvey Barnes was offering stuff, and then they were getting some goals from the midfielders. But Jacob Murphy kind of exploded towards the latter half of the season last year with goals, and they weren't able to. Maybe they were missing some of that. I don't know. Murphy did come on in the second half, but that was when things were things were so compact and defensively, it's not really easy to defend. That when things are so compact like that, that is really when you need just a tall striker to battle some balls in the air and maybe get some luck there. Because Villa had no way to advance the ball either. So that's where we are there. And then with Chelsea and Crystal Palace, a nil-nil game. Eze had a free kick disallowed for a weird rule. Apparently, you need to be 1 yard off the wall, and Mark Gahey just kind of pushed people into the wall. Uh, I've never heard the rule before, but I guess it makes sense. According by the actual by letter, it was the right call, but it was a bit of a surprise. That said, no one deserved anything in this game. Chelsea had 20 plus shots. I think it was like what, three on target, or if that. Yao Pedro and Cole Palmer clashed entirely. And one of the things that I was worried about when they signed Yao Pedro is Yao Pedro is not the kind of number nine that I think Cole Palmer needs, which is funny enough, Nicholas Jackson. And what I mean by that is Cole Palmer is not going to be someone that makes runs ahead of the ball. He's going to be the one that goes to the ball and then wants to maybe go into some space to carry it. But if you got someone that's being a false nine that's also dropping in and that's also basically taking a center back with him or taking a defender with him, that space isn't there. And that was happening so much in this game where you needed someone to just make a run off the shoulder. Now, Liam Delap came in and was actually offering that. Uh, and the reason why that's funny enough is it wasn't an issue for them in the summertime where Chelsea did go out and beat PSG, and it did kind of give everyone a head fake. Is they played Cole Palmer off the right, and that's why it was a little bit different. Cole Palmer was receiving the ball off the right, and they were also playing Marlo Gusto, who was offering that overlap, that wing option that allowed Cole Palmer to play in that kind of half space. They played Reece James almost in midfield, not really Enzo, and it was a different kind of Chelsea team. And they were able to just kind of they got 3 goals really in the first half when PSG actually could have scored themselves. It was a bit of a head fake, but hey, they went on and they beat a PSG team that everyone had been praising for the last year, and deservedly so. And so Chelsea did come into this with a lot of hype around them. I would have been one of them. I would have thought, Yao Pedro kind of could be a signing of the season, kind of player because he is a striker that he gets the ball into the box, he can create, and he does have a good shot on him. He does have a finish on. Maybe the one thing that Nicholas Jackson didn't have, but he's gonna have to change his game. He's gonna have to recognize he's gonna have to do a whole lot of running without the ball because Cole Palmer is gonna be your number 10, if you're gonna play that way. If not, maybe you play João Pedro in one of the wide areas instead of what they did. What they went with James Bino Gittins, that a youngster from Dortmund, and they brought in they tried Pedro Neto on the other wing, and neither of them worked. You know, you have all this pace out wide versus a team that's not going to offer a whole lot of counter opportunity. Now, versus another team, yes, this probably would work. But at least versus Crystal Palace, they're not really going to offer a whole lot of space to get in behind, and you're gonna need some creation instead. And funny enough, one thing that one of the subs that actually worked in Chelsea's favor was this new kid, Esteve, 18 year old from Brazil. He was the first one to take on Tyler Mitchell and actually force him to defend, have to force him to stop some crosses and some dangerous balls into the box. And nearly found Delap and nearly found Cole Palmer that needed some late blocks. So that was kind of the game for Chelsea. The other thing too is they have a center back crisis now. Tosin apparently has an injury. They've already lost Levitt Colwell to a really bad. I think it's ACL, so it might be for the season. They've lost. They don't have Fafana anymore. Fafana's been a bit of a bust signing, which I'm a little bit to blame for that. I thought he was going to be really good for them, and that just has not been the case. Uh, and they had to play a very young 19-year-old in Achimampong, and then Chalaba, who Chelsea fans don't really love. Chalaba was okay, but he doesn't really have a left foot, so playing him on that kind of left side kind of hurts the build-up. At least that's what I've read Chelsea fans complain about. Mark Cucurella wasn't able to be nearly as influential as he was towards the latter part of last season, and in many cases, you could argue when Chelsea had their most kind of big goals or big moments towards the stretch, Mark Cucurella was at the heart of that. Weirdly enough, being like a goal threat in the box. I think he scored in the Conference League final. Um, I think he was a big part of the some of their best moments versus PSG, and so they weren't able to get Cucurella really, kind of in the in danger areas either. And just they're playing Reece James instead of Marlo Gusto, and Reece James doesn't look like he has the legs to really kind of be that threat to really threaten. Or he can still be good with the ball at his feet, but that's just kind of where we are there. And then Crystal Palace, they're just really good out of possession. But that said, they offered nothing going forward. I think they had 4 shots and only one on target. Once Eza went out in the second half, all of their attack went out as well. Mateta was always had people draped on him. Chelsea were pretty good defensively. Uh, Sarr just wasn't able to really get free either. It felt like Munoz and Mitchell were told not to really let people behind you as well. And it just became a case once it got to like the 70th minute, just defend what you have, defend the point. And they were able to do that. 28% possession. That's what it is with them as well. 168 passes. God, that might be the lowest of the entire season for any, or the lowest of the entire weekend. 510 passes for Chelsea and 90%. But a lot of that is just passes where you're not a pass, a number of passes that aren't making a team move. You can do side to side if it's fast, but if you're not making a team move, it's pointless. And Chelsea, to me, with Enzo Maresca, are basically that's a really good way to describe them. So we'll see if they're able to change it or not. I do think João Pedro is going to come good for them, but just here they canceled each other out. There was someone that showed a passing map that actually really did showcase that, where Chelsea were doing a whole lot of side to side stuff, and then they would try to pass it in the middle, and João Pedro and Cole Palmer were just on top of each other, and yeah, that's just not the way to go. Chelsea were able to get a lot of shots off. I forget what it was. It was 19 shots, but only 3 on target. And so I don't know. I was wondering if you could try Cole Palmer a little bit off the right, and then you do Yao Pedro, who was kind of like the actual 10, and then you have Delap a little bit ahead of him. Uh, but maybe that's not the idea. But the other thing that's weird too is Chelsea keep being linked to wide players. They brought in Gittins. I don't really know if you needed to. You already have Neto. You have you have this Esteve guy, and I don't know if the idea is to maybe loan him because he's 18, but he looked pretty good. To be fair, and then the whole season they've been linked to Garnacho of Manchester United, which I don't understand at all. Um, I understand him wanting to leave Manchester United because he maybe doesn't fit Amorum's kind of system. But Chelsea, I mean, maybe he has goals to him. Maybe he can be a little bit more of a threat on that left side than what they have. But why did you spend so much money to bring in Gittins? Gittins wasn't cheap, so it's just been Chelsea have been really annoying because they spend $1 billion and they stack up rosters and they have all these youngsters that aren't really able to develop and, maybe it'll work out for them, I don't really know. It's still, their squad is huge, and the funny thing enough is they've done that, and yet they still have a center back crisis where they need you look at them and they could probably do a whole lot of spending, at the back line still. So, that's where we are with Chelsea. I think that's where we are with Palace, and then the last game to talk about will be the Forest and, Brentford game. Uh Nottingham Forest 3-1, all in the first half, and it wasn't competitive. It was, Brentford have come into this with a brutal summer. They've lost their coach, Thomas Frank. They've lost their identity. They barely missed out on Europe. They actually had a really good second half of the season last year, and just the dominoes have continued. They lost the pieces for that. They've lost Brian and Bremo, a very good kind of game changer, a goal getter. They've lost Christian Norgard, kind of their general in midfield. They've lost, or they've set to use Johan Reisa, or maybe not. They've been linked all summer to lose him. He wants to lose. He wants to leave. He's doing kind of the Isak thing. He's trying to force it, but the club is being very adamant that they don't want to do it. Um, and they have brought in some people. They have brought in Django Watatara. They have brought in Jordan Henderson. Uh, is that all like for like? I don't really know. That's at least something. And the other thing that the thing that's main is here that you've lost Thomas Frank and you've replaced him with a set piece coach last season that's not really been a coach before in Andrews. Now he's been at the club, so he knows how a club operates. You can say that, but this wasn't good. They came into this with a very kind of labored squad as well. No damn squad, I think, for the birth of his child. So they brought in one of the signings they brought in was a Milambo, a youngster in the Dutch league. He played in the U21s in the summertime for Holland, so he does have some promise to him. But he looked he didn't look like this was for him. At least going for Nottingham Forest is a tough task anyways. This used to be a team that, last year actually Brentford were able to be competitive with them. I think they did beat them in one of the showings, but it was mostly a game where they were just able to go long to Eliza or Bremo and just able to create that way. This is now a what used to be maybe a competitive kind of a matchup. Now is two clubs that have gone in completely opposite directions. And one of the things that's very interesting is Nottingham Forest risked a lot by just spending a ton and eating a points deduction a couple of years ago. And what they've done is they've been able to grow their PSR by doing that because they've grown their revenue by just being a little bit more kind of a cult like club, by being able to grow their image, and also by being successful. And you look at them, and they just missed out on Champions League last season, and I think they did that because they had some injuries at the back towards the end. They lost Hudson-Odoi for a couple of games. They lost Oli Ana. They lost their back line. They had to play Ryan Yates for a couple of those games too. And I think they lost Chris Wood for a couple of those. So they had some injury crisis at the back. There was a game versus I think it was Leicester where they conceded late, and Tyra Owini actually ended up crashing into the post, and it was kind of a life threatening kind of injury, and he wasn't able to go off the field because they had used all their subs. They had a really rough end to the season last year. They had a chance to maybe even get in the Champions League if they could beat Chelsea on the final day, and they I think they lost to a Chelsea kind of a header. Some center back was able to get a goal to lose that game as well. So they were close. They were close to being a Champions League team. The entire year they were in like the top three. So it was actually a surprise that they didn't get it. So I think they finished seventh. So they might still have Europe football. But you look at the squad. I don't know if it was because Brentford were just so poor. They look top four already. They look fit. They had some players that they didn't always have. They Ibrahim Sangare hasn't always featured for them. He looked like Fabinho on Liverpool. Tall, good with the ball at his feet. Didn't look like he was a stilts. He didn't look immobile. He looked very, very strong for them. And then you've got Anderson and Gibbs White that either are tens or like number eights, just dual winners and people that know what they want to do with the ball. And Anderson was able to get forward, looked really threatening, had a great assist for the second goal or third goal. Gibbs White was Mr. Creator himself. He probably, other than Tiani Reiners, a few people had a better opening day than Gibbs White. And again, that could have just been Brentford not being able to deal with him at all. And then the front line with Hudson Adoy and Chris Wood. Chris Wood's always going to be there to get some goals as long as he can stay healthy. And then you have Dan and Doy. And Dan and Doy is basically the Anthony Elanga replacement, and he looks very good for his debut as well. They got him from Bologna, a Swiss international who owned the U.S. in the summertime in one of those preseason game or uh, early friendly games. He scored a great header for a second goal, set up by Gibbs White. So that's where we are there. I mean, and the defense is just you imagine they're just gonna be able to reload and do what they did last year with Ole Aina and Milenkovic and Morello and Nico Williams, and then you have Matt Sells, who's a really good keeper. So you look at this, and outside of injuries, this team is more set up to be a top four team than Man United, than Chelsea, than Spurs, in my opinion. A lot of teams or a lot of pundits have maybe looked down on them and thought maybe Nottingham Forest were lucky last season. I think the opposite. Now we'll see if they are in Europe, we'll see how that travel maybe affects them because I don't know how deep their squad is. But yeah, it's hard not to be really, really bullish for them. And they win 3-1. It really wasn't competitive. It was 3-0 at halftime, and then They kind of let the guard down a little bit. Now, the one thing to say about that is Nottingham Forest bucked the trend. They're not a team that keeps possession. Now they had 55% versus Brentford, but last season they were the team that had maybe the least possession of anyone in the top like 10, or maybe even in the whole division last season. Now you look at them and it doesn't feel like that should be the case. Um, Singari, if this is going to be the midfield, Singari, Anderson, and Gibbs White, that's very good at keeping the ball. Anderson is underrated, and he Anderson was maybe player of the season or player of the summer for the England U21 team. So he looks very very good. Gibbs White, likewise, and you've got a front line that looks quite good as well. Now, what's behind them? You have they brought some depth off the bench as well. Joe Da Silva, was able to come on for them. Now I don't really love Ryan Yates, and I keep kind of poking him a little bit. And the other thing too is if anything happens to Milenkovic or Murillo, that changes how aggressive they can be at the back line. But this is Nuno has come in and created something at Nottingham Forest. They aren't just a defensive minded team; they're pleasing on the eye now as well. I think this is a top four team, maybe even something else. And I just think, yeah, we'll see if that pans out or not. And then the opposite with Brentford. This screams, uh-oh. Coyote, Collins, Seth Vandevan, and Rico Henry. That should be a pretty good back line. Rico Henry back into the starting 11 after having an ACL injury for the last year. Didn't look up to pace. Now maybe he can get that back with some game reps. Yarmouk and Jensen was not Norgard or Janouts. Yarmouk was okay, but Jensen kind of struggled a little bit. He was asked to do a different kind of uh, a different kind of task. So maybe you can say about that. And then Milambo in front of him, he was losing the ball. He didn't look like it was up for him too. And then this is really where the problem was. It was Kean Lewis Potter on the right, Tiago, and then Fabio Cavallo. And you've got Lewis Potter and Cavallo that are like number 10, kind of little creative kind of players, not really people to stretch the back line. And you've got Igor Tiago that didn't have a lot of pace to him either. He's big though. And Brentford were trying to go long to him as a way to just kind of advance the ball forward, and he wasn't able to win those duels with the center backs ahead of him. And even if he did, he didn't have anyone to link anything to because no one was making runs ahead of him. Where last year you would have had Imbremo and Wiza doing that, for days. Now they do have Watatara that they brought in. They do have Kevin Shada that can come in as well. When we saw him in the second half, and so this Brentford team can look better. You have Damsgaard that'll be actually be in place instead. Uh, Coyote's a pretty good real right back in my opinion. Collins and Seth Bandit, they showed to be a pretty good, competent center back pairing. So does Brentford have enough to stay up? It's hard to say because I've grown to actually have a little fond for them. I do worry about them, but I do think they have more than what I've seen. Even not every team is going to play Nottingham Forest. uh, a top four team in their first game and look much better. The bottom teams, West Ham or Everton maybe would have struggled in my opinion too. So I think that gives them some hope. The only negative here is what I saw from Sunderland and what I saw from Leeds yesterday. Uh, these promoted sides are not going to be what they were last season, in my opinion. And we'll see what Burnley are able to do when they aren't playing a big side like Spurs. Burnley didn't they conceded 3 goals, but 2 of those goals were just goals that just normally wouldn't happen in any other game. So, uh, yeah, there's going to be more competition than they've been. I don't think you're going to be able to eke out where the promoted sides are not going to be able to get 30 plus points. That it might actually take 38 to stay up. So we'll see if that's the case or not. That's where we are. And then I mentioned it a little bit. Leeds are able to beat Everton. Everton just looked like they had no ideas. They looked really poor. And then Leeds were able to get something on a PK, and so and Leeds were all over Everton, just didn't really have any kind of striker going forward, but they do have Calvert Lewin, funny enough, of Everton. So that's where we are there, and so thank you for tuning in, and until then, you stay squatty and stop recording.